Hey, thank you so much for clicking on this video. My name is Kaylee, and this is a Read Rant Review, where, you guessed it, I read books and I do rant reviews. I read a bunch of crazy nonsense, and then I tell you all about it. Today we are going to be covering Heart the Lover by Lily King. This fictional novel was published on September 30th of 2025, 256 pages, and currently on Goodreads it's sitting at a 4.27 with 230,000 ratings. Pretty popular. This one was nominated, I believe, for the Goodread Awards for the 2025 fiction category. Did not win. I believe it was My Friend by Frederick Bachman ended up winning last year. So this was close though. It ended up one of the finalists and whatnot. So I decided to read it. Bawled my eyes out the entire time. I thought this was a really good story, a really interesting one, and I wanted to talk about it today. So it's a pretty quick read, like I said, about 250-ish pages. And I'll go ahead and read you the book description, and then we'll dive right in. If you are new to the channel, hey, this will contain all of the spoilers. This will be a beat-by-beat, chapter-by-chapter breakdown. So if you want to read the book, I highly advise you going and doing that first, and then coming back here, and we'll have a discussion about it, a la book club-esque. You know what I'm saying? And then otherwise, if you haven't read it, don't have any interest in reading it, or don't have the time, that's what I'm here for. I'll give you the breakdown. You won't miss a thing. So I'll go ahead and read you the book description so you know exactly what we're getting into. And then I would just like to give a blanket trigger warning for this one. Viewer discretion is advised. Tap out at any point that you need to. No hard feelings here. I'll catch you in the next one if you need. And then also, before I get too far into this, I just would like to shout out the audio listeners over on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. Thank you guys so much for the engagement and ratings and listening over on those platforms. I really do appreciate it. Every comment and rating on those means a bunch. So thank you so much. And then, of course, thank you to all of the patrons and Bindery members and book besties and everything like that. I am so incredibly grateful for all of the support. You guys mean the world to me. So, book description for Heart the Lover by Lily King. You knew I'd write a book about you someday. Our narrator understands good love stories, their secrets and subtext, their highs and their free falls. But her greatest love story, the one she lived, never followed the simple rules. In the fall of her senior year of college, she meets two star students from her 17th century lit class. Best friends living off campus in an elegant house of a professor on sabbatical, the boys invite her into their intoxicating world of academic fervor, rapid-fire banter, and raucous card games. They nickname her Jordan, and she quickly discovers the pleasures of friendship, love, and her own intellectual ambition. Youthful passion is unpredictable, though, and she soon finds herself at the center of a charged and intricate triangle. As graduation comes and goes, choices made will alter these three lives forever. Decades later, Jordan is living the life she dreamed of, and the vulnerable days of her youth seem comfortably behind her. But when a surprise visit and unexpected news brings the past crashing into the present, Jordan returns to a world she left behind and is forced to confront the decisions and deceptions of her younger self. Written with the superb wit and emotional sensitivity fans and critics of Lily King have come to adore, Heart the Lover is a deeply moving story that celebrates love, friendship, and the transformative nature of forgiveness. Wise, unforgettable, and a delightful connective thread to writers and lovers, this is King at her very best, affirming her as a masterful chronicler of the human experience and one of the finest novelists at work today. Love, totally agree. I thought this was very well written. I really appreciated the pace and style of writing of Lily King's. It's very snappy, it's very straightforward, and I related a lot to these characters in a way that I don't really connect with a lot of characters in writing. We'll talk about it as we get into it. But yeah, I really enjoyed this. I'll be reading quite a few quotes, I imagine, just to kind of convey my love for it in certain passages and why I liked it, and we'll get into a little bit more of writing talk as we go through it. Similar to what our book description said, our novel opens with our narrator sitting in her 17th century literature class, and the professor decides to read one of the essays aloud. It happens to be hers, and it really impresses the two star students that are at the front of the room. So following the professor reading her essay out, Ever so slowly, one of the guys moves back a couple rows every day or every class period to end up sitting next to her eventually. He introduces himself as Sam Gallagher. They have a bit of conversation back and forth. Ultimately results in him inviting her to go and watch a movie. It is like a war movie that is over 3 hours long and just very, very dense and a little awkward. Definitely not like a good first date material thing. And beyond that, and just kind of this like general awkwardness, Sam does not talk. He does not say a lot of words. He's just, in general, is just a very quiet guy, a very observant guy. And on top of that, our narrator is dealing with these feelings of inadequacy. And we'll talk about that throughout this book, where she is in this 17th century literature class, and a lot of the people who are in there are a part of the honors program of the college, and she is not. She did not qualify to get into the honors program. She just has an interest in literature and ended up in this room with these like really, really smart people, and she just doesn't feel like she belongs. Especially so when talking to Sam, where he says some things to her, and I agree. What else can I do? I am a mere student and he is a scholar. That much is clear right away. I've never met a scholar who wasn't a professor. And Sam isn't even a grad student. He's a senior like me. And she goes on of like on their date and they're kind of wandering around the college campus and are walking around that the movie has made these buildings, these quads, these years of our lives seem so unbearably naive. And I want to say something about it, but that feels naive too. And immediately and throughout part one, the book is set up into 3 parts. Throughout part one, you really, really get this feeling from our narrator that she just is like trying to catch up and trying to be as smart as or seem as smart as or be good enough to be a part of this like friend group that I'll continue talking about in a second. But I just want to like reiterate that it gets established very, very well in the very beginning of this book, and not in like a self-pitying way, not in like a woe is me, I can't hang out with these people, but just a very realistic, oh wow, I am not on this level type of thing. I guess it's like, if you know, you know. I feel like that's a pretty universal experience, but yes. Anyway, after the movie, Sam invites her back to his house. He, like, again, that we learned in the book description gave away a lot of information. He is currently staying at a professor's house, Professor Gaskell. I will have a list, don't worry, if you are a visual person, I will have a list up on the screen of all of the characters and names and relationships and whatnot. We'll have a running one going on screen, so it's there for reference, okay? So they go to this house. Dr. Gaskell, hello. He is currently on sabbatical, and so Sam and a couple other guys are staying at the house to keep an eye on it. They go in the living room, they take a seat, they sit on like opposite sides of the couch from each other. And again, Sam is just awkward. He does not talk, and she doesn't want to say anything because she doesn't want to sound stupid to him. And so it ends up just being this like very, yeah, totally, type of thing going on until somebody comes in through the front door. And it is one of his roommates, Yesh. Yesh is his best friend. They have been friends for a couple of years now. They're inseparable. And he comes in and he's like, hey, how was your Daisy? What? How was your Daisy? And then he turns the corner and he's like, oh, must have been good. You're still here. And we learned that Yesh and Sam and their other friend, Ivan, who we'll meet in a second, all refer to their dates and going on dates as daisies, in reference to Daisy Buchanan from The Great Gatsby. I am going to cover this eventually as a casual classics on Mondays. I used to do casual classics quite a bit on Mondays, and then I've just fallen out of the routine, but I do plan on getting back to it. Great Gatsby's on the list, so look forward to that eventually. Anyway, they refer to all of their dates as Daisy, i.e. Daisy Buchanan, i.e. if you're unfamiliar with The Great Gatsby, Daisy Buchanan is the love interest that Jay Gatsby, who the book is about, who he is obsessed with. He's like always had this crush on this woman, been obsessed with her, whatever. They refer to their dates as daisies. So they're like, oh, okay, well, I mean, I guess it did okay. She eventually pesters Sam about it a little bit later. He's like, no, it's a good thing, I promise. And then they have a little kiss as she goes away that evening. So it was a little bit of an awkward date, but not too terrible. And they go on their way. He eventually invites her to dinner, right? The relationship it's going, you know, they're still hanging out. She's trying to get integrated with them. And even though, again, it's kind of this like awkward stuff between them, there is some romantic interest, and they're hanging out more and more. And so he eventually invites her to go to dinner with him and his friends. So Yesh is there, and then Ivan, the other guy that I mentioned earlier. He's also an English major. All three of these guys are English majors. They are in the honors program, and she makes a note about how it feels like they went to a completely different college. Like, they're referencing all of these professors and stuff that she has never even heard of. They're talking about courses that like she has never qualified for because of the prereqs to get into it. And there's notes about how the honors guys have honors, like students have their own advisors, like dedicated advisors to help them get through the program. And it's just a completely different like school. It's a completely different experience, and how, again, weird and out of place she feels sitting amongst all of them. So to the point that I'll go ahead and read you this quote I've highlighted. I'm a good student in English. I get A's and A minuses and nice words at the bottom of my essays, but I have never made friends with any of my professors. All men except for Iyengar. No one has even ever given me a perk or suggested a seminar. I waited for Professor Weiler at High Five once, which is the restaurant that she works at, right? So these guys also, none of them have jobs. They all like either are just off of scholarship and being paid, or they have like free board staying at this guy's house, or their families have money, and when they get out of school, they're just going to go and work for their parents or whatever, right? Like, it's a completely different dynamic versus she's working like 3 jobs to pay her way through college too. That's like another aspect to all of this. On top of them being men and she being a woman, this is in the 1980s, also for context. So anyway, I had waited on Professor Weiler at High Five once, which is the restaurant she works at. I had had him for modern poetry sophomore spring. He was alone and drank 3 bourbons and asked me what time I clocked out. I don't think he was planning to tell me about the honors program. If I'd had Dr. Gastrel, maybe I'd have gotten to see his green bedroom, but I doubt he'd have given me this house for the year for nothing. The other thing to note during this night and this discussion is the card game they play becomes a through line for the rest of the book. I'll talk about it a little bit more later, but they play cards a lot and they bond a lot over these games. And also the fact that they talk a little bit more about her and we get a tiny bit more information, mostly the fact that she came to this particular college on a golf scholarship. She only played golf for like 2 months and then dropped out of it though. And so that's why she's now working these jobs to pay for schooling, but she doesn't tell them that. And because she went to college on a golf scholarship and she's a golfer, they say, oh, you're not Daisy Buchanan. You're like Jordan, who was a golfer in Great Gatsby. Like, she was like I don't know if she's a professional. I think she's professional. Again, it's been like 10, 13 years since I've read that. Regardless, they now call her Jordan. And so she will be called Jordan for the rest of the book. After dinner, they go up to the bedroom. They start making out a little. She thinks that she and Sam are going to go on to like full on do it. He stops her. He says, it's nothing like to do with you. I promise. We can't do that. She goes to bed with him. They fall asleep in bed together after not doing anything, even though she's very like sexually frustrated. And when she wakes up in the morning and she looks at his nightstand, she sees a stack of religious books. And she's like, oh, yeah, a guy who sleeps with religious books next to his bed is not somebody that would have like premarital sex, right? So she's like, okay, got it. He's an uber religious guy. My bad. I did not clock that. And so when she goes down that morning for breakfast, and she's talking to Yesh, who is making breakfast. They cook it a little bit together, and they're having a bit of a bonding moment and just kind of BSing while Sam is upstairs doing his thing and getting ready for the day. She and Yesh continue to have a discussion and realize like both of their parents are divorced. They have complicated home lives. There's a little bit of drama and things that they kind of bond over versus Sam's picture perfect family. Right, super uber, picture perfect, religious, has money family. Yesh's parents, his father was an immigrant who ended up getting a woman pregnant in like southern Tennessee, like one of the first women that he had met when he came to the U.S. Got her pregnant, married her out of like, I don't want to say pity, but like out of obligation or whatever you want to call it. No matter how I phrase it, it sounds shitty because it is a shitty thing to do, right? Marries her, realize he hates marriage and the idea of marriages, divorces her actively like hates women in general because of this. Jordan's complicated family dynamics as well. It's just like there's more bonding between these two versus Sam and his perfect piousness, right? Not that perfect, because turns out her and Sam, as their relationship continues, they do everything but. That's what we used to say in high school. Sam and I get really good at everything but. Anything but crossing the line, right, of what God would forgive you for or not forgive you for or whatever. Also adding to this layer of opposite, like home lives and opposite things, right? So we have the boys who are staying in this like really, really beautiful home that this professor has versus Jordan, who is going home to 12 roommates. She and this girl, Carson, they share a room together, and then they have a bunch of people in the house. And it's pretty much like couch surfing and staying on twin beds, and they don't have a heater. Like the house is not centrally heated. They have one singular heater in the living room that they all like pile between and like sleep on top of each other to be close to survive through the winters, right? Like it is a not luxurious living situation like how these boys have. So again, it's just this like contradicting ways of living. They also don't have like heated water. And so like she showers at school, at the gym, or in this case, as they get closer and closer in their relationship, she more and more begins to stay at the boys' house, or the professor's house. She ends up pretty much like moving in over there, essentially. We have another instance of her going over to the house, and I'll go ahead and read this to you. Ivan teaches us a new card game called Sir Hinkum Funnybuster that some girl from Connecticut taught him. He removes the 5s, 6s, 7s, and 8s from the deck, and with the remaining cards explains that each suit is a family. Every king, the head of family, spade the gardener, club the policeman, heart the lover, and Sir Hinkum Funnybuster, who is the king of diamonds. The remaining cards are different members of each king's family. The first person to collect a full family wins. All the cards are dealt out, and the only way to obtain cards is to ask another player for one. But each request has to be spoken with the exact same polite phrasing, and you must say thank you before you touch a card someone gives you. If you mess up, the first person to scream Sir Hinkum Funnybuster gets your turn. Sam, Ivan says. Yes. May I please have the spade of gardener's twins? Yes, you may. Sam slides the 2 of spades across the table. Thank you, Ivan says, but it's too late after he touches the card. So we all scream Sir Hinkum Funnybuster as loud as we can, and then we argue about who started screaming first. You have to pretend that you're not looking for the suit you want, and you're always trying to disrupt others from getting what they're looking for. There's ganging up and subterfuge. We all have our ticks and tells. I always ask for the parrot, the 3 of the suit that I'm pursuing. Sam always asks for the eldest son. Ivan never learns to say thank you before touching the card he's asked for, and Yesh always forgets about the donkey. Sam cannot scream Sir Hinkum Funnybuster without leaping up and knocking things over. When I scream, Yesh says that my eyes look like they're going to pop out of my face like buttons. It's deeply satisfying to win that game, to fan out a whole family before anyone else does. That is the game, that is the context, and Heart of the Lover, right, is the name of the book. It's also one of the kings of the hearts from the card game, okay? That's where this all ties together. This card game will get referenced throughout the book. I am still confused about it. I could not tell you how to play. It does not make any sense to me. It doesn't really matter. All you have to know is that's where Heart of the Lover comes from, is this game that these friends play. And I'll read you this next section as well, because I think this also puts like a pretty important framework together. In bed that night, after a few hours of Sir Hinkum and then our celibate sex, Sam tells me about his relationship with Valerie, which was his like high school serious girlfriend that he had. She learned about Valerie from Yesh when they were making breakfast the other morning. And she's kind of asking him for some insight about Sam. She tells me about his relationship with Valerie. She was a Baptist like him, very pious, he says, and made it clear on their first date that she would not have sex before marriage. They fell hard in love and were together for months until they lost control one night and did it. He covers his face. We prayed, we went to each other's ministers, we stopped receiving the sacrament, but it ruined us. I do not say, you ruined it by believing in this man-made bullshit. I say, you were in love. It was a natural impulse. I will never forgive myself for doing that to her. Sounds like you did it together. It was my fault. Why? because it's always the man's fault. Why did you rape her? He glares at me. I laugh. I am incapable of understanding his dilemma. It feels completely made up to me. I've noticed that about people who had stable childhoods. They like to create their own problems. Oh my God. Why couldn't you just apologize to each other? Just say, oops, like it was a mistake and move on. Isn't the whole point of Jesus about forgiveness? We tried, but he struggles for a while to find the words. And then he says, we are all our sins remembered. What the fuck, Sam? That's Hamlet, not the Bible, and that's a load of crap. He's angry after that and rolls over and won't speak. After he falls asleep, I go back to my freezing house. On Monday morning, he walks me to Modern Furniture like nothing happened. Modern Furniture being one of her other classes, right? And she goes on to reflect how that was a bad night, but these are some of her favorite nights, right? Being in this house, hanging out with the boys. You know, she'll stay in some nights and help Yesh pick out clothes for one of his dates and like give him feedback on stuff and then crack jokes with him when he comes home when it inevitably goes wrong. Like every date he goes on ends up being some like dramatic, crazy story where it just like doesn't go right. And she'll help Ivan prep for his dates. And all of his dates, he's the best lover ever and really impressed her. And he did the coolest thing ever and everyone clapped type of stories, you know, like he's one of those guys. And she's just happy there. And then in the middle of all of this recounting, and she goes on to detail more about Yesh. He takes a lot of girls out, but never the one that Sam says he has a real crush on, Laura Mertens. She's Austrian with an accent so mild you have to listen closely for it. She was in a Japanese history class with me a few semesters ago. Very stylish, a little sad, putting up with all the Americans, but they all call her the goddess. She doesn't seem right for Yesh, but I can understand the appeal. The beautiful skin, the pouty disdain, the tailored jackets, but she doesn't look like she has any fun. He's so sharp, so quick, so eager to make a fool of himself. He needs someone who gets him entirely. And then, so you're hearing this and you're reading this paragraph and you say, oh, so like, I think she might have a crush on Yesh, right? Like I think there's some regret that she ended up with Sam and not with Yesh. However, this paragraph that we have, literally, I'm showing you my iPad screen. We'll go from this to describing him going on these dates and not going on a date with the guy that he likes. And then immediately, a few weeks before I met Sam, a girl I knew had been killed off campus, stabbed to death. The school paper said in the only article they wrote about it. No one I knew her. Carson had gone home from the summer and I'd cobbled together a few sublets before we moved into Pie Street together in September. In August, I ended up in Franklin Terrace for a few weeks, and so had she, this girl from Iran. She was going to be a sophomore and took summer classes during the day. I was working at High Five at night, so we didn't see each other much. I only remember a few real conversations. She had told me that her father had worked for the Shah and had left Iran when the Shah did, 9 days after the start of the revolution when she was 9. She had the most delicate and pale skin that I had ever seen, as if a ray of sun had never touched it. She had a crush on the boy in the apartment next door, and he was going to be a sophomore too. When she told me that he had asked her out, she leapt around the apartment like a deer. She was a virgin, she told me. She'd never had a boyfriend before. We lived together for 3 weeks. I don't remember saying goodbye. She wasn't there the day I moved out. I didn't see her on campus after that. A month later, she was dead. That boy's roommate had raped her and stabbed her 16 times in the apartment next to ours. I heard the news on the college radio station the morning after it happened. I went to the funeral alone. I didn't talk about it, but sometimes I woke up in the dark, in Sam's bed, and thought of her. Kyra was her name, and her small upturned nose and that tender skin. And so, just like randomly in this recollection of current day happenings and good stuff and being so happy, it's just this like punch in the face long paragraph about this like traumatic experience and this like traumatic thing that happened on campus. And this will happen a couple of times like that, where you're just like chugging along and it's just like a totally normal story. And then it's just like, pow, the most traumatic thing that you can imagine just gets dropped on you in the same casual tone as the rest of the paragraph or as the rest of the chapter. And then it continues on. No, there's no acknowledgement, there's no wallowing, there's no reflection or linking how that ties to the current state of things. It's just like dropped on you in a way that I think is very, very well done in the terms of like, I don't want to call it PTSD and I don't want to sit here and diagnose it or anything, but in the way that like traumatic things that happen to you or around you or that like you experience or know about will just like find its way into like your day to day, right? It'll just find its way into everything that you're doing. Or you'll feel so happy at something, or like, so in this case, right? She has a boyfriend and she's happy and it's just like, whoa, this like remembering that this friend of hers is never going to experience that. Right. And it just like takes her out of this moment. But then she just like comes right back to it and just continues living because you don't really have a choice but to do so. I think it was just handled really well. And throughout the book, everything gets talked about in that way, where it's just like I said, there's no preamble to it and there's no like digesting it. It's just like bam, 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 bam. Let's keep it going. And I think that style of writing is like so fascinating. And again, I think it's so accurate for the way that like people interpret and move on from traumatic experiences, where they just like wiggle your way into your head and to think about. This also gets brought up because on one of the times that she is at the house, she's there by herself. Sam's out at a class or doing something late, and Yesh comes home. And they end up talking for a little bit. They actually end up smoking one of the teacher's cigars. So they're sitting in here, they're smoking a cigar, they're just kind of hanging out. And he says, I was at the funeral for Kira. I saw you there. I recognized you from class, and I wanted to say something to you. You looked so upset, and you weren't there with anyone, but I didn't, and I'm sorry. I was there because I knew the guy who killed her, and I didn't want to tell you that. You knew him? His older brother was on my hall freshman year. The police found a sweatshirt with my name on it in magic marker. My mom labeled all of my clothes in magic marker. In that guy's apartment, his brother must have swiped it from me, and he ended up with it. They questioned me about him, and I didn't know why. And then I saw the article about the paper. The one article. Yeah. How do you think they kept it so quiet? I don't know. Because she was a foreigner, probably. How did you know her? A little bit more back and forth. They talk about like religious aspects and how Sam is like pressuring her to read one of the books, specifically the Confessions of St. Augustine, in case you were curious. And they talk about this. And again, a little bit more bonding behind the scenes, both over this like traumatic event that happened, over these religious differences, over their childhood familial similarities compared to Sam. Sam comes home, finds out they were smoking cigars, calls them children, and they all just kind of like scatter and move on. But again, it's building this triangle of tension that's happening here. Relationship continues moving on to the point that we get to goes home with him. They drive down to Atlanta to go and see his parents. I don't know if it ever says exactly where they are school-wise. For some reason, I was thinking they were like in, I don't know, they must be in like northern Georgia or something. They're somewhere south, because they also later on, right, Yesh is from Tennessee, and they make a drive to Tennessee, and they're driving to Atlanta. And so I'm thinking that's where they are, like general southern-ish area of the United States. So anyway, they decide to drive to go and see Sam's family. Sam and Jordan, they go down here to go and visit them. And he kind of gives her the heads up of like, hey, you kind of have to be on your best behavior. Basically the whole like, don't embarrass me thing. Inevitably, she ends up embarrassing him pretty badly. And it's not necessarily her fault of what happens. She's trying to like make light of situations and cracks a joke at one point, and it doesn't land. And the family's not impressed with her, and it's very crude, and it just like doesn't go very well. The final straw is obviously they have to sleep in like different rooms. And so she's in this guest room kind of down this hallway, and she gets ready, but then she doesn't know what to do because she steps out into the hallway and she doesn't hear the family. So she doesn't think that they're ready. They're like going to go to dinner. And so then she just goes back into the room and she waits because she's like, okay, well, I guess maybe Sam will come and get me. I don't want to just wander around and see his family that clearly hates me. Like, I'll just hole up here until he comes and gets me for dinner. It's like 30 minutes later. He comes in and he's like, what are you doing? Like, why are you not ready yet? You're going to leave us waiting? Because they were out in the foyer, out in the foyer. And she just didn't hear them. And she tries to explain herself that, you know, she's like, I didn't hear you guys, and I thought you'd come and get me, and I didn't know what was going on. But they're not impressed, right? Another horrible impression. Another, you know, they're late for their dinner reservation and just like not going well. So obviously, by the time that they end up going back home, they fight the entire drive home. And he lectures her about being embarrassing. They end up getting back. Fight, bicker. They end up full on having intercourse in the middle of the living room of the professor's house, of the like shared home. The following morning, they wake up, they go about their day, and he does not acknowledge her. He does not invite her to stay the night. She's like, okay, well, this is like really awkward today. I'm going to go to bed. And he's like, hey, I think you should actually like go back to your house. So she goes upstairs and she collects all of her things and she goes back to her shared apartment with the 12 other roommates that she hasn't stayed in the house like all semester, basically. She has been basically living at this house with these guys. And obviously she is heartbroken that he is like taking this out on her, that this was like a mutual thing that they did together. And this, like, after this horrible fights and experience with the family and feeling embarrassed, and then, you know, they end up doing it, and then he's bailing on her, ghosting her, essentially. Not ghosting her, but like breaking up with her. And she just feels like absolute crap, right? Which is completely understandable. And it's awkward. You know, she gets support from her friend Carson. She tells her mom about it, and her mom is super, super sweet and super supportive and saying the whole, like, you know, he didn't really deserve you anyway. And her mom sends her a sleeping bag to help her stay warm now that she's back in this house. I don't run into Sam on campus, but I pass Yesh once in the crowded corridor of Tate Hall between classes. I spend the rest of the day analyzing the nature of his surprise at the moment he saw me. That night, I lie in my sleeping bag and feel sad that he can't be my friend now. I'm aware that I had ideas about the future that I hadn't discussed with myself. I figured Sam and I would go on separate paths after graduation, but I had hoped that Yesh and I would stay friends, that we'd be friends for life. Now that seems a lot less likely, and this is the thing that I'm most sad about. Sam comes to Pie Street 11 days after he told me to leave. He hands me a short letter and watches me read it. It is dry and unspecific for an apology. At the bottom, he has signed it, Heart, the lover, and that makes me smile. He kisses me before I can speak, and after a talk in my freezing bedroom, we go back to the Breach, which is the name of the house, where Yesh and Ivan actually woo-hoo when I come into the living room. The next morning is Sunday, and Sam goes to church. He hasn't gone since I've known him. He told me he didn't like the new minister, but last night he said he was going to give him another try. Oh, which also hurts me because there's still like levels of like guilt and stuff from them doing it, but he's like trying to like, I don't know. It's just like complicated, messy relationship stuff. So when he goes to church, she decides to go downstairs. She runs into Yesh, who's cooking breakfast, and they cook together. And they fall into this like really good sync of them like taking turns chopping vegetables and cooking and seasoning and having a good time. And this is yet another thing that they bond over, because Sam lives on like coffee and like microwaved food, but Yesh loves tea and she likes tea, and he cooks and she enjoys cooking. And it's, again, just this, I don't know. I don't know how to explain it, right? Just this kind of like wishy-washiness. I hope you can watch visually of like, this is how I feel of what's happening. And I don't know how to translate this into English. They're cooking, they end up eating breakfast together and have a little bit of a talk. And we learn that Yesh is not going to be graduating. He's not going to be graduating with them. And instead, he's going to have to stay another year. It turns out like his freshman or sophomore year, he ended up having to take a semester off to take care of some family matters. And so he's making up for it now. Upon hearing this news, she realizes that she likes knowing where Yesh will be in the fall because she doesn't want to lose her friendship with him. And she knew that like upon graduation and everybody going their separate ways, that there was no guarantee that they would stay friends. And this will come back around in a minute. And so she asks him, have you ever heard the story The Last Fall by Ray Hart about a guy who stays in college for an extra semester? Yash is not. And she says, okay, I'll get you a copy of it. It's like this very, very long and tender farewell to youth. I like to read it, he says, and nothing else. No quip, no barb. I haven't done it justice. The back door rattles and we both jump. Sam is in the window. He gives the door a shove with his hip and it comes unstuck. I've never seen anyone go in and out of that way before. He comes in and plucks at the green napkin in my lap. Fancy. He spins around to the stove and studies the skillet. None for me? Yesh and I both get up and start chopping onions and potatoes. Sam pours a cold cup of coffee from the percolator. And again, this is reflective of Sam taking a sneaky way back into the house that nobody has ever used before. He's suspicious of stuff, right? He's suspicious of this tension between these two. He's clocking it. He's not dumb. I think he was trying to catch them in the act of something. And also, she made special note about when she was telling him about the book that he accepted it. He accepted her recommendation. He accepted that it was good and he's interested in it. No quip, no barb, no judgment, which is a big thing that she feels from Sam, where she feels that she's not good enough. She feels that he's constantly judging her or like putting her down in some way. And she's like always fighting for like to be taken seriously or to like be good enough versus, it's very natural. And he's just there and good and accepting of her and her recommendations. Just all just like laying foundations for things. Very well done, very subtly done, very, I think, purposeful. Like everything in this story is there for a reason. All of the actions of the side characters, the actions and interpretations, and even little small comments from our narrator, it's all there for a reason. It all serves a purpose, which I'm very, very sensitive to in the books that I read. I don't like a lot of fluff and a lot of nonsense. I like it to be very like straightforward or like meaningful in some way, you know what I mean? Later this day, since I lost my golf scholarship, my college education has been funded by a series of loans and my job at High Five. I am going to have to pay it all back. This paltry dabbling I've done, these wasted years, I haven't been serious. I watch how quickly Sam writes in Latin. He looks at me. What's going on? I've made all the wrong choices. I go to my advisor. He teaches courses on Swinburne that I've never taken and is always adjusting the back pillow behind him. He shaves, but he lets his hair grow wild everywhere else on his head. Great tufts sprout from his ears and nostrils. His eyebrows are thickly entwined. I tell him I want to go to do an honors thesis in creative writing. Too late for that, he says. I want to stay another semester. It'll mean another loan. I know. I want to write an honors thesis and take 2 seminars. You have to have a pretty high GPA. I hand him my transcript. His tangled eyebrows move around. He removes the pillow behind him and replaces it with a smaller one beside his chair. Then he hands me back my transcript. So be it, he says. And then he does something with his mouth that I think is meant to be kind. And so she's deciding to stay for another semester, to stay with Yesh and to finish school, and also to, again, pursue this feeling of being good enough and going into the honors program and doing the thesis and graduating with these like accolades that she is deserving of, right? She's on par with these guys. She's busted her ass. She's worked here. She just hasn't necessarily been given the same opportunities and chances that they have. So she's taking her fate into her own hands and she's going to go do this program. And also it supports this whole Yesh thing that's happening. So she runs into him a couple of weeks later on the quad. They end up getting like coffee and sitting on the stairs together and talking. And she tells him that she's not graduating either. I tell him about the thesis. I don't mention the seminars I've signed up for. One of them is immortality, and I don't want him to think that I'm stalking him because he mentioned that that was the seminar that he needed to take that following semester. So she's really just trying to like get close to him, right? So eventually they have a back and forth, and he ends the conversation saying, I'm glad you're staying here. I'll have one friend. Me too. He bumps me with his shoulder again. We'll have our farewell to youth together. I tell Sam that night after my shift at High Five so that he hears it from me first. We're on his bed eating jelly beans from the Easter basket that his mother sent him. He has a stronger reaction than I anticipated. You like to make things hard for yourself, don't you? I shrug my shoulders. Here comes the judge. You gave up your scholarship and took out student loans that everyone knows are hard to pay back, even when you have a real profession in mind. And now you want to rack up another semester's worth of debt for no good reason, apart from the fact that you don't want to grow up. I was still in my work uniform, khakis and a teal polo shirt, with a basketball decal high on the left boob. I'd worked every semester of college, and 2 jobs during the summer. Sam had worked part-time at his father's office in the summers, and after a trip to Europe this coming summer, that's where he'll work in the fall. I look around at his free house with his free utilities. I lift up the pink Easter basket by its handle and swing it between us. I'm not sure you want to go toe-to-toe with me on growing up, Sam Bam, which is what his family calls him. I say and get a small smile out of him. And again, I think this is the part where just like I related so heavily to this main female character in a way that like I can't really like articulate, but I will just in like a general sense. When I went to university, I also did not make the honors program. I got like the tier right under that. So I had like some scholarships, but I wasn't in like the super cool Smart Kids Club. I didn't get like the exclusive dorms and the exclusive classes and the dedicated advisors, but I still ended up taking half my classes with these kids. And eventually I ended up being a graduate assistant for the tutoring program. And I was a tutor and like this like special type of tutor. Like I had 2 jobs on campus. And I was working with all these kids in the honors programs that were also tutors. And I hadn't made quite that cut to be on par with them. But I busted my ass and I worked every summer and I was working 2 jobs through school. And even like grad school, I was working I guess I was working 3 jobs in undergrad because I had some seasonal work that I did. And then in grad school, I worked 2 jobs because I had my graduate assistantship. And then I had my other job that I was doing, my internships and stuff that were like another 40 hours a week, 30 hours a week. Busted my ass through school. And the guy that I was dating at the time, when I decided that I wanted to stay at university and like continue working for the tutoring program and work there full time and then do like adjunct professor work, he told me that I didn't want to grow up. And the only reason I didn't want to leave school is because that's all that I ever knew. And I just didn't want to be a grown up to get like a real job is what I was told. I fucking worked for like 50, 60 hours of my life up until that moment. And then I was told that I didn't want to go and do real work. Editing Kaylee, I realize I never gave you like the conclusion or the tie back to this or anything. So, because obviously I'm not working at the university anymore. I ended up quitting that job because of his comments and took my internship full-time that I had gotten offered and did that instead because that was real work comparatively. And so quit that, completely changed my trajectory of life. And then he broke up with me 2 months later. Thing where it was an older guy, not quite the same situation here, but it was an older guy that it was one of those like, I just always felt inadequate and I always felt immature and like nothing I did was good enough or I wasn't, smart enough or I never made enough money or I wasn't like blah, blah, blah enough. And it was just like the inadequacy thing that this character talks about in this book where you just like fight tooth and nail for somebody to respect your opinions and to take you seriously on things. And no matter what, it's just not enough. Cut to more time passes. The deadlines for Sam and Ivan, they're, deadlines for their thesis, it looms, and so they end up busting their butts for the next couple of weeks. He's very short-tempered. She keeps her distance. She's just like continues working and doing her thing. And eventually they end up having a few days prior to graduation, we go to a senior dance. Yesh got the courage to ask out Laura Mertens, and we meet them there. The party's outside and there's a band and a bar and blazing torches sunk in the ground all along the edge of this enormous garden. Laura's friendly. She kisses me on the cheek, asks me if I've read any more Japanese history, and rolls her eyes. When Yesh speaks, she's very attentive. She likes him. Yesh is not himself. He has a sort of mask around other women, I've noticed. I thought maybe with Laura it would be different, but it isn't. Other friends come up and we get separated from them, and at some point Sam tells me to stop looking at Yesh and Laura. I can't tell if he's having a good time. Of course he's having a good time. He's on a date with the goddess. I run into a couple of people from my writing classes and talk to them for a bit. And then I see Sam bum 2 cigarettes off of his friend Brent. Sam wanted to stop smoking cigarettes leading up to graduation. Like he started smoking them because of stress stuff when he was writing his thesis. And then she has worked with him like diligently to get him to stop smoking. And so when she sees him lighting up a cigarette and bumming a cigarette off of a guy at this party, I excuse myself and I walk over and pluck them out of his pocket. He tries to grab them back, but I clutch them tightly in our struggle and I get knocked hard to the ground. It's a semi-formal. I'm on the ground in a pale green dress. I see Brent's disgusted expression as he looks down at me. He doesn't have time to hide it. He doesn't offer a hand up. Sam does, but I don't take it. I get up, brush the dirt off the back of my dress, and walked directly out to the road and the 2 miles home to Pie Street. So back to her actual house with her 12 roommates. I don't go to graduation. I work brunch and dinner at High Five and get out at midnight. And her housemates are having a party because they're all celebrating graduation as well. But instead, she just makes her way upstairs and just goes to her room and just like watches everybody out of the window. Weekend goes by after graduation. She ends up saying goodbye to her roommate, Carson, who I briefly mentioned earlier, who she was friends with. She is officially graduated and gone. And she ends up coming home. And on the porch, there's a box filled with things that I left at the breach, the house where the boys all lived, right? The professor's house. A few t-shirts, Cosmos, a hairbrush that's not mine. At the bottom, there's a note from the little notepad by the door, folded in half. I'm sorry about our fight. We both can be pretty stubborn sometimes. I'm taking off in a few hours. I guess we've reached the end of our road. What a long, strange trip it's been, no? Yesh's dad called a while ago and said he asked how my love life was going. I told him, and he said that Jordan sounds like the kind of girl you divorce. I know you'll take that the wrong way. I don't think there's a right way to take that. However, it helped me see that we didn't have to be together. I didn't have to fight for someone polysyllogistic fantasy of my own making. Don't forget to graduate someday, Sam. I've never burned anything anyone has written to me in my life, but I take that note straight to the gas stove. I light it and watch it curl and blacken in the sink. I wash the flakes of ash down the drain. Still, the words reverberate. Jordan sounds like the kind of girl you divorce. What hurts the most is that it's probably true. I've never known a happy marriage. My mother was miserable and left my father for a guy who seemed like a good guy, but he died before they could marry. I don't think she's had a relationship since. My father married Anne, a neighbor who stood by him when he got fired for drinking with the high school boys he coached and showing them the peepholes in his office that looked into the girls' locker room. He treated Anne worse than my mother. My brother said recently that Anne had called him from the closet where she was hiding from him. She wanted to know what would happen if she called the police. She didn't want him to go to jail. I probably am the kind of girl you divorce. Okay. Yeah, again, just this like emotional gut punch, and then we continue on. At least Sam is gone. I don't know if Yesh has left for Knoxville for the summer. I walked to the library. It's empty. All those seniors who packed the place last week are gone forever. I find The Last Fall by Ray Hart in the Old New Yorker, make a Xerox, and walk to the breach. Yesh's car is still there, his bedroom light on. I go quietly around back and I slide the pages under the kitchen door as far as they'll go and flee. And so she goes on to try to move on with life, right? She applies for a new student loan. She doesn't hear back from Sam or from Yesh. Like 2 days later, his car is gone. So he hadn't left for Knoxville. He obviously got the letters, or at least the story, by that guy, but never reached out to her or acknowledged that she delivered this to him. So she continues on, gets the new loan for school, and then she starts to apply for a job at Chantal, which is the most expensive restaurant in town, only 6 tables and no entree under $15. After my first night of training there, I walk home and pass the apartment building where I lived for those 3 weeks with Kira. I stop and identify our door on the 2nd floor. It bothers me how little I remember, how distracted I must have been, how unfriendly, maybe. She was alone. Her friends from freshman year weren't back yet. She never put anything in the refrigerator. I remember that. All that was ever in there was the stuff I brought home from the restaurant in the afternoon in aluminum containers with cardboard tops. Did she know how to cook? Did I ever offer her my leftovers? The place looks like a cheap motel with its balcony that stretches the length of each floor. There are people outside partying in different spots. It must have been like that last summer when I lived there, but I don't remember it that way. This must have been where she met that boy next door and his roommate out on the balcony. It feels like one of my jobs is to remember her. How had the university buried her story? I remember she leapt like a fawn across our living room. I stand there a while, and then I head toward home. At the foot of Pie Street is a laundromat called Bubble Time. I stop there next and look through the windows. And then just moves on. And she goes on and she ends up applying for a job at Bubble Time too. So she has all this extra work and stuff. Yeah. She ends up at Bubble Time. She has a new coworker that she becomes friends with. And then they are she gets talked about through the story. Her name is Claudette. It's nothing crazy. I don't think she really serves much of a narrative purpose other than she introduces her to some people, and she's kind of the one that brings her out to parties and stuff, but it's nothing super, super significant for me to repeat the name to you. Just know that she's trying to make new friends and make money and try to move on with life. The next morning, she goes home and she's goes to bed and stuff. The next morning, there's a note pushed through the nail on my door. Yesh called. I can't call him back. I don't have his number. He said he was going to live in his father's barn for the summer, and I could call information for his number, but I'm not about to call over there. Jordan is the kind of girl you divorce. The only reason Yesh would try to reach me would be something to do with Sam. A plane crash, a Eurorail accident, a nightclub fire, something awful must have happened to him. And then she's at work at bubble time at the laundromat when he calls again, and this time he gets a hold of her and he's like, hey, sorry, I know this, like, I'm kind of stalking you considering I called your house and now I'm calling your place of work, but I was thinking, I was wondering, I can't find a job here, and I thought maybe I'd come back there. I have a couple of leads on a sublet, but I'm wondering if for a night or two, if there might just be room on the couch at Pie Street. Pretty much like, yeah, can I come crash on your couch and like come home early from this like summer break? She says, yeah, of course there is. And so their friendship continues, and he's going to drive back to the university to sleep on her couch and try to get a job. After he arrives, it's like a day or two passes, right? He arrives, gets him situated on the couch and stuff, and then they talk a little bit, and then he asks if she's hungry and should we get some dinner. I change out of my work clothes into my favorite summer dress, pale blue with big white buttons on the front. We've never had summer together. I force myself to breathe. Then we're in the Nova. I'd been in it a few times, which is like his car. I'd been in it a few times. Ivan up front, Sam and me in the back. We'd gone to a party in the woods somewhere. Another time we went to a barbecue restaurant in Raleigh. Oh, okay, so are they in North Carolina? They would have to be, right? You don't just drive to some barbecue restaurant in Raleigh if you're not like right outside of Raleigh. Okay, anyway, now I'm in the passenger seat and Sam is in Europe and Yesh looks over at me. I want to tell him about Willie Sylvester. He asked me out at recess in 6th grade. I had a crush on him since 3rd. I feel like I'm in a dream, I said to him when he asked me. I feel like that again in the passenger seat of Yesh's car. And again, that makes me want to like cry really bad for some reason. They end up going to dinner and talking, and they end up talking about like their childhood neighbors and like their childhood friends that they had. And one of her neighbors was this older lady who wrote books, and she was always upset because her mom would never let her read her neighbor's books. And so he says, we'll have to find them. Like, we'll go to the library and we'll get a hold of them for you so you can finally see what they're about. And she says, we will. I look at him and then I look away, and I'm scared how happy I am. I just want to cry so bad. Like, the whole book, I'm like constantly on like the verge of tears. And I don't know if it's like, again, a tenderness or like something that I just like identify with in my soul, or if it's just cute, or like what it is exactly. But he says this to her. The waitress comes over with a pitcher of tea. She takes a book of matches out from her pocket of her apron and lights the little candle in the glass holder in the center of the table. There are no other students here. Everyone around us, including the waitress, is decades older. We aren't going to get interrupted or seen by anyone who knows Sam. It's just us. I have him all to myself. I take little glances of him, looking at the menu, his thick hair falling across his forehead the way he likes it, his scarred lip. I'll never touch him. I know that. I don't know what Sam has told him, but even if he believes Sam and I are truly broken up for the last time, he won't cross that line. He wouldn't be here if it were a temptation. There are plenty of other people that he could have asked to stay with. Once I think all this through, I relax. This is not a date. And then, like, almost as if reading her mind, he interrupts her thoughts and he's like, I noticed you first. I was the one who pointed you out to Sam, you know? She's like, what? What are you talking about? Like, I thought it was my story that got read. And he's like, no, I noticed you before that. And the way he's like explaining it is pretty much like, I don't know. No. But they end up having like, almost like a debate back and forth, but it's like intellectual and it's respectful about life and optimism and pessimism and what life is for and what is life if not for love and things of that nature. And it's just a very, very good conversation between the two of them. Eventually they end up, like, he takes her home. It gets revealed that they are actually broken up. Like, her and Sam are actually broken up. Yeah, he wrote me a note. You probably know that. I didn't know that. It wasn't an apology. It was more of a screw you. I'm sorry. It's fine. He wasn't my type. I could have told you that last fall. I wish he would have. I knew about the first note he wrote you. Oh yeah? I might have helped him a bit at the end. Hart the lover? He smiles. Fuck. That was the only good line, I say. You're quite the puppet master. I didn't mean to be. You salvaged our first date too. How was the daisy? I say in a loud voice. He laughs. It's cute. Right? They have a little bit of talk. They're like sitting on the porch together outside of the house having this conversation. And she eventually asks him if he had read the short story that she had put under his door. And he says, yeah, it was a little overplayed. It was a little boring, you know, blah, blah, blah. And she's like, oh, I thought it was gorgeous and tender, and everything in it is working toward the mood, this ache, this very tactile sensation that gets deep inside of your bones. He sort of reminded me of you. Of me, that loser? How does he remind you of me? She's thinking. Because I'm a little in love with him. Because he moves me. I can't think of anything true that I could say out loud. And so she just stays silent. She loves him. And then he goes on to talk about how I worried that you thought tonight might feel like a date at the restaurant. I laugh. It did feel a little like a date, didn't it? You put on a dress. I did. And the waitress thought so. She called you a keeper. I love that we're reminiscing about the evening already, but for some reason I blurt out, your dad said that I was the kind of girl you divorce. This stuns him. Sam told you that? I nod. My dad has said that about every woman since he left my mother, even my stepmother. I'm embarrassed that I brought it up. My dad is a jerk, Jordan. That's why I couldn't stay there. He didn't want me working with my uncle. He didn't want me seeing my friend EJ. He didn't want me spending time with my mother or playing tennis. One minute I'm a lazy hippie and the next I'm a pretentious yuppie. Either way, he's convinced that I'm an all-American fuck-up, which is his sort of catch-all for any kind of person except for him. I'm like my mother. I'm as useless as a beggar in Calcutta. Just a running commentary. He has these things on repeat, and one of them is that every woman is the kind of woman you divorce. I feel awful that you had to hear it. And then banter. They end up back in her bedroom, and they have sex. And before they do so, we get his clothes off too, and we are standing, looking at each other and grinning. The feeling catches me off guard. Oh, love. She feels love. This is the first time she's felt love. She never used that or felt that way at all with like Sam and stuff. It just hurts me really bad. It hurts me really bad for what we're about to like talk about and get into. And for the rest of the summer, it's beautiful. He essentially moves into her room and they become a couple. They push the two beds together, right? She was sharing this room with Carson. Carson moved out. And so she ends up paying rent for this, which is like $88 because there's 12 of them, right? And so her and Carson used to split the room and paid $44, but now she's paying $88 to have the whole room to herself, or in this case, to her and Yash. So they push the two beds together. They sleep next to each other every night, and they kind of make a new version of the Hinkum Funny Buster, and they call it Honeymoon Hinkum, which then turns into them calling each other Hink. And it's just this very, very like cute little pet name thing going on here. That July, he says that he loves her on her birthday, and it's very cute and tender. Eventually, their friend Ivan returns from his trip to Europe, and they try to hide their relationship from him. And it's a little bit of tension, but they do pretty good, and Ivan's none the wiser. But it can't be good forever, right? Nothing ever is. So Yash ends up getting his own room, like his own apartment. And right before classes begin, they pretty much like take turns staying at his apartment and then kind of staying at her place and back and forth until Sam returns from Europe and he's going to come and visit because him and Yash are best friends, right? They have to completely like erase her entire existence out of his apartment, and they're not going to be able to talk or see each other or anything during the time that Sam is visiting. And it's kind of like this whole dirty little secret thing where they're still trying to keep it a secret because they don't want to not necessarily piss off Sam, but they don't want to like hurt his feelings or anything, right? And he doesn't want to be this like bad friend in this whole like bro code thing. So they're going to pretend to like keep their distance and just not talk. So they clear all of her stuff out of his apartment and she goes home, and she's just realizing how much of like a precarious position that they were in. That over the summertime with nobody around, they were able to live this little fantasy thing. But it all comes crashing down when Sam returns. But she does give him a little bit of an ultimatum of like, hey, you have to tell him. Like, you have to tell him that we're together. Yash kind of does. But then he kind of chickens out. Instead of saying that they were fully in a relationship and in love and doing it and having a great time, he instead asks Sam for permission, basically. Pretty much presents it as like, hey, I was kind of thinking of asking out Jordan. And Sam got so pissed off. Like super, super angry. He absolutely forbids it. Like not ever going to happen. And so Yash goes to Jordan's house and she comes home from work and he's sitting on her bed and he's very upset about all of this. Like he is so emotionally torn because he's going to have to choose between his best friend and his like girlfriend. She doesn't want to push him to pick one because she's afraid that he'll pick Sam. So she wants to make him pick one, but she won't pressure it. And so she's just like, okay, I guess this is just like, it is what it is. And so he leaves because Sam's still visiting. He's still in town. He just had to tell her to her face that this is what's going on. Like an hour later, Sam is outside of her house yelling for her to come out and to talk to him. And she ignores him and ignores all of it. And then there's eventually like Yesh gets her a little dolphin, like a little dolphin like tchotchke thing as almost like an apology gift for not coming clean to Sam. Like he just kept playing along with it and ignored her for the entire visit and stuff. And so it was this little apology tchotchke, and then left her a note at her house apologizing for all of this. And it was signed as the real Heart the Lover. For that entire fall semester, they are taking Dr. Gastrel's seminar together, which was the immortality one. Dr. Gastrel is the guy that had the house, right? Where they all had stayed the previous semester together, and like that whole while he was on sabbatical thing. He's back, he's teaching the seminar to them, and he's teaching the seminar out of his house because there's only like 15 students or less than that are taking the seminar. So they all like pile in the living room and are taking this course. Very sentimental, very kind of weird for Jordan to be in this house again and experiencing all of this and the feelings and everything that's going on in this like budding, continuing relationship with Yesh, and the complicatedness of it with Sam, because he does continue to make like periodic visits or like sporadic visits, and every single time they have to completely ignore each other and hide their relationship, and they're still hiding it in public, and it's just a lot of tension between the two of them. As much as they love each other, as passionate as they are about each other, they just end up like distancing themselves and like this tension building here. The other thing to note during this particular semester, Jordan gets an advisor who is a fellow woman who gives her more female writers to read. She's like, hey, you have very clearly everybody that you reference in like your writing style. This is very much based off of like men and like male whatever. Like you need to read more women. Gives her a bunch of like recommendations. Virginia Woolf, Catherine Mansfield, Zora Neale Hurston, Elizabeth Bowen, Djuna Barnes, Nadine Gordimer, and Jamaica Kincaid, just in case you were curious what female authors she was given. But anyway, so she's like, yeah, you need to read all these women, and then they begin like the editing process of her thesis, and it is just really, really building Jordan as an author. Like she's finally given the attention and the time and somebody that's like invested and cares about her and her like literary journey, and it's great, right? So this is like a big part of this semester as well. As she's continuing on, she maintains her job at that really, really fancy French restaurant, the one that only had 6 tables. She ends up working there full time. Like they take her on full time, so she's able to quit her other jobs that she was doing and just work there. And she makes a lot of money, and it's going really, really well. Like I said, school-wise, work-wise, everything is going great, other than the fact that her relationship with Yesh is constantly interrupted by these visits from Sam. Back to the whole thesis thing and like talking about her writing. My best story is about my father. It's not autobiographical. It's about the manager of a shoe store and the high school boy who gets a job there. But it's about my father and my rage and shame and love for him. These scenes that didn't happen concentrate and distill the emotion of what did. The truth has nothing to do with the facts, one of my professors said, Faulkner said. Professor, which is like her advisor, shows me what that really means. And I thought from like a writing perspective, I thought that was like such an incredible sentiment, or like an incredible way to the whole like the truth has nothing to do with the facts. And these scenes that didn't happen concentrate and distill the emotion of what did. Beautifully, beautifully puts in the whole like, this is not related to like real life events or whatever. You know what I mean? The disclaimer that like all authors put on their books of like, this is not based on real blah, blah, blah. But the emotion is. The concentration and distilling of those emotions did happen. And I just thought that was such a great way to like describe that aspect of writing. So I wanted to share that with you. And then, yeah, every few weeks, Sam comes to town and disturbs that happiness. He stays with Yesh, and I can't go to any of the parties they go to. My name is verboten. When they are together, I don't exist, Yesh tells me. All their friends know not to mention my name. When Yesh returns to me after the weekend, he doesn't want to talk about what they did or where they were or where they went or what they said. I hate Sam for this. The way he takes Yesh away from me for days at a time and brings him back sullen and petulant and conflicted. The way that I used to return to my mother after a weekend at my father's. Ugh. I hate the smell of the room after Sam has been here. I hate the box of my things that Yesh's housemate lets us store under his bed that I retrieve once Sam has gone. It's just a very like sad, crappy situation. And she doesn't want to like talk to him about any of this. He goes to the kitchen and I have a cry in the bathroom. I want to tell him how I'm feeling, ask him if he noticed that we haven't seen each other since last Friday. This is what my old boyfriend Jay meant when he said that I bottled things up. But I'm not good at saying that I feel hurt or forgotten or rejected. There had been no room for that growing up. I'm more skilled at burying those emotions or hiding them in my fiction. I go back to his room and he brings me a sandwich. I can't stop the tears, and he says, "Oh, Hank, what is it?" I don't like it when Sam comes here, is all I can imagine. All I can manage. He agrees that it's a tough situation, and we lie down on his bed until we have to walk over to class. In December, when Madame Treves, who is the owner of the French restaurant, helps me set the tables, I know something is wrong. She only helps when she wants to reprimand you. I'm not sure what I've done. She likes me. She and her husband had Yesh and me over for Thanksgiving. We told her we wanted to write books and live in Paris, and she brought out boxes of photographs and told us about every arrondissement that she lived in. "You know you're my favorite," she says to me, straightening the napkins that I have placed carefully. I am. She scowls at me. "Of course you know that, and I don't want to lose you. I don't, but I make sacrifices. Not often, but I do. I have a niece in France, my sister's daughter, 2 kids, no husband, and her girl just quit. Why she would employ a German, I do not know. But she is in need, and you want a job in Paris, so there you go. A match made in heaven with me, the only loser. You can write while the children are at school. Middle of January you go, you leave me." She flicks me away with her fingers, insulted, as if it was my idea. So this like whole time throughout all of this, they have kind of joked, kind of talked, like her and Yesh, about moving to Paris and writing, because that's where like a bunch of famous writers are from, and like inspiration and whatnot over in Europe, and they just need to go and experience Europe, right, to write. And she has the opportunity. It's given to her on a silver platter because she's such a hard worker and she's busted her ass for so long that like things are finally turning around, and she has this wonderful opportunity to go and be like an au pair nanny, a live-in nanny for this family. And it's incredible, right? Like this is everything that you ever could have asked for. So she returns home and she tells him as soon as she's through the door, because she's so happy about it. And he's as surprised as I am. And he wonders if I'll get paid enough, and if not, how I will defer my student loans. And she's like, "How will they even track me down? Like, I'm literally going to be across the world." He says, "They will eventually, and the penalties will be harsh." Why are we talking about my student loans? "Will you miss me?" And he says, "Of course, a lot." And he says that he'll come and find her as soon as he graduates. I want to go, though I don't want to leave him or our nights of honeymoon hinkum and the little red suit, which is like what she wears to stay warm at his apartment because it's really cold. He holds me tight and says until then, we can write letters to each other. And it's just very, very wholesome. And so at the end of the semester, that's where she's going to go. Yeah, we're going into like the Christmas holiday break and whatnot. And so this time he takes her to home. They go down to Tennessee. She gets introduced to all of his friends and family. There's some like touching bonding moments between all of them. Like this is the first time that he's ever brought a girl home, and his one friend who is a violent alcoholic, and very clearly it kind of gets like touched on, skimmed over of like how to manage that, and like, hey, we're only going to be out here for a certain point and then we're going to go to bed and blah, blah, blah. And there's 2 daughters there, and the kids are absolutely obsessed with Yesh. And it's just very, again, like cutesy bonding stuff, and the way that these interactions happen and they handle it, we get more and more like character development, and it's just very well done. But what really matters is being around all of his family, meeting his dad and his mom and his friends and all these folks. It just leaves him very like dejected. Like going back home is really, really hard for him. And then after this, he's going to take her to the airport, and she's going to fly home and visit her mother for the holidays. And then on New Year's, she's going to fly out to France and go and do all this stuff. And so when he drops her off at the airport, he is very disconnected. I shut the door and he pulls away. I wave and he waves, though he's looking straight ahead. I fly to my mom's for the holidays. Yesh and I talk on the phone a few times. Once he gets back to his place on McDougal Street, he sounds more like himself. He says he's wearing the red suit and won't take it off until he gets to Paris. The day after New Year's, I leave for France. And so begins her time in Paris and bonding with these two little girls that she's taking care of and talking to their mother and living in this house and writing all the time and like really dedicating herself to her craft and just like being happy. And a lot of this has to do with the letters that she has back and forth with Yesh back home. I run to my tiny room to read the letters. It is, as they always are, brilliant, erudite. Is that how you say that word? That's how the recommended thing said it. That sounds wrong though. Distant and unapologetic, sweet and affectionate only in the last two sentences, like the turn at the end of a sonnet. Enough of my preambulations. I do love you, babe. Cumbersome as it is for me to feel and to confess. This is the first time he's used babe on the page. It's his most tender endearment, which he only uses in the most intimate moments when it feels like we are breathing from the same body. At the end of this letter, he says that he'll come and visit her in August. So they're going to have all this time apart where he is getting out of school, graduating, going back home to work for his uncle and go and make some money and stuff and save up enough to go and see her. But every letter that comes through is like shorter and shorter and more distant, and he's like working overtime and getting work to the bone trying to make enough to visit her. July letter is shorter and less buoyant. He is having a really hard time at work. His mother is chaos incarnate, and he would leave for France right now if he could, but he just can't afford it. And also he's trying to write a novel in the meantime, but he wrote 9 pages, and it was the worst 9 pages of fiction ever committed to paper, and they have been befittingly burned with the brush pile behind the tool shed. He's just not doing well. Eventually he makes it though. I honestly, at this point in the book, I assumed that their relationship would fall apart and they would move on or whatever, but he makes it. He comes to France and it's beautiful and they go exploring, but he's tired the whole time and he doesn't want to spend a lot of money on stuff because he's still got to go home and save more and continue working and stuff. And so it ends up being a little bit of like a wedge in their relationship about what he's willing to do and not do and how she can't show him all the things that she wanted to. And the following morning they go on their last adventure. He's about to leave. And so they spend this last day on this like final, very, very beautiful walk. I think it's a hike, actually. It might be like the 2 days before they leave. They go on this hike. It's super gorgeous, whatever. They get to the top, this clearing. It's lovely. And she tells him that she loves him with her whole heart. I look up at him and his mouth is twisted. What's the matter? He doesn't answer. You okay, Hink? He shakes his head. It just hurts a little to feel this good. And so that is the point where I said, oh no, is he going to go and off himself? Like, is that why everybody cries at this book? Like, is he about to go home and like end it all? He does not. But she's like, hey, like you should, I have an opportunity to stay here forever. Like, how about you just move to Paris? Just stay here. We can make it work. And, we can get like a work permit. And the lady that I'm with, they have dinner together at some point with like her and her like new husband or new boyfriend guy or whatever. And he's really impressed with Yesh. And he's like, yeah, I can get you a job and you can come and work for my company and do this whole thing. And she's like, oh my God, this would be amazing. Like, Yesh, come to, Paris. We can make this work. And we'll just live here for a year on a work permit and then blah, blah, blah. And everything will be great and we can live happily ever after. And so this is great. And he's on board for it. Everything is going to be great. And so he is going to call his dad to cancel his flight and he's just going to stay in Paris and they're going to make this work. But while on the phone with his dad influences him and completely talks him out of the plan, saying that it also could just be a year of French bureaucracy and getting deported before the paperwork comes through. And she notes that his father had gotten to him so fast. So she asks, what does your dad think is better for you? Like a better idea for you? It's not him. I've been thinking that maybe I should stick to my original plan. Original plan? I haven't heard of this original plan to save enough to move to New York. New York? Yeah, a guy I know from high school is there and he has an entry-level position and blah, blah, blah. And, he goes on and he's like, yeah, being a writer in New York is so much better than being in Paris anyway. Like, you need to come back to New York. And she's like, I don't want to. I always wanted to live in Paris. Like, this is where we should be. And it's this back and forth and it's very sad. And they end up like parting ways and he does actually get on his flight and he goes back to the US and there's just this like really awkward, terrible tension between them. And she is super uber depressed about all of this. She stops going out, she stops doing anything, and instead she's saving every penny she can so she can save for New York. By the middle of October, I need to hear his voice. Remember, he was there in August. They haven't really talked since then. So by the middle of October, I need to hear his voice. So she goes to the payphone and she tries to call him, but his dad answers. His father acts like my name is only vaguely familiar to him, and I ask him if he could ask Yesh to please call me when he gets the chance. Does he have your number? Yes. Are you still in Europe? Yes. That'll be an expensive phone call, which will appear on my bill. I'm sure he'll reimburse you. Wouldn't your words be prettier in a letter? The payphone beeps. I have 10 seconds to put in another coin or be cut off. I'll do just that. Thank you. Yesh does not call back. So she writes Carson, her original roommate that she had. Carson lives in New York. She writes a letter to Carson trying to figure out, if she knows anybody who has an apartment. Luckily, she does. She knows a person. And so she sends that information to Yesh and is like, hey, they're subletting. This would be great. We can move in a few weeks. They'll have the first availability like January 1st. We can move in and we can meet back up. She doesn't fly home for the holidays this time around to save more money. Yesh calls me on Christmas Day. He wants to know if I'm okay. He hasn't heard from me in a while. The shoe's on the other foot. I can hear how strange my voice sounds. What's wrong, Hank? I'm tired. I'm just tired of missing you. My words feel useless. I just need to see him. I get it. It's been a long fall. It has. We talk about the logistics of early January. He says his flight to Newark lands an hour after mine, giving me time to get through customs, and then we're both flying Delta. We'll meet at the baggage claim. He'll receive the keys to the apartment, and he promises he won't forget them. Cut to early January. She's in the airport at baggage claim, and she's waiting and waiting and waiting, and she's thinking if he knew how much I loved him, it would terrify him. I think of Willie in the 6th grade asking me out by the swing set. He called me every night that week. We talked about his hamsters, Sailor and Glory. Glory stuffed her cheeks with seeds, and you could press her neck, and you could feel them all in there like a beanbag chair, he had told me. Sailor didn't do that. Willie and I met at the mall that Saturday, walked around holding hands, and before our parents came to pick us up, he kissed me outside the bathrooms by the food court. He said I was a good kisser, and I told him about my crush on him since the beginning of 3rd grade. I told him I remembered a pale blue shirt that he used to wear that year and the little drawings of rabbits he used to make on the back of his math workbook in the 4th grade. He called me the next day and broke up with me. Why? I asked before my throat closed and the tears started. He said it was too much pressure. All that stuff that I had said about liking him for so long, he said that it had made him feel like Sailor. Why? I whispered. Because you have all of these memories of me stuffed inside of you, and I don't, and it makes me feel funny. And Yesh never shows up at the airport. So eventually she gets worried, right? He doesn't come. The whole baggage claim clears out of the people from the flight that he was originally on. So then she looks, and in 3 hours, there's another flight landing from his airport that he was going to fly out of. So she waits for that one. He's not on that flight either. So eventually she goes to the payphones. She calls. His stepmother answers the phone, and she says, "Oh, Jordan, we were worried it would be you. What happened?" I hear my voice ring against the 3 walls of the phones. "Oh, sweetie, calm yourself. He's fine. He told me to tell you he'd be on the road till late and that he'd give you a call at Carson's tomorrow." "On the road? He's driving here?" She doesn't answer. "He's bringing his car to New York? He decided against that months ago." "He's not driving to New York, hon. He's driving to Atlanta, to Sam's." Picked Sam over her. Somehow I find a cab to Brooklyn. I howl the whole way. The driver never says a word. It's New York. He's seen it all. I press her buzzer, and Carson comes down in her old slippers. My coat can't button anymore, so she sees the shape of me, the mess I've made. "Oh, honey," I wail in her arms. "Does he know?" I shake my head. "Oh, my little chicken," she says. She holds me up for a long time, and then she carries my heavy suitcase up the stairs. Okay? That particular part slipped by me the first time that I read through this. So that's the part 1. He leaves her hanging at the airport. Just completely disappears on her. When we go into part 2, it is 21 years later. 21 years since she left France. And she is at the park with Yesh and her 2 sons, Harry and Jack. Yesh is not the father. She is married to a man named Silas. And the whole time as she is like going through the park with with them, and he's playing with her boys and stuff, and a woman mistakes him as their dad, and she's like, no, he's not. And first time that I've seen him in 21 years. And the whole time she's just thinking internally of like, what are you doing here? Like, why are you here? Why are you here now of all times? And on our way to the house, you stop at your rental and pull your bag out of the back. It's the same green duffel that you brought to Paris, and now it's come to Maine. The side of it is jarring, and I wish you would put it back in the car. I wish I hadn't offered you a place to stay on your trip up the coast to see friends. And so then they go inside of her house, and he's greeted by her animals, and he's like, I didn't think that you would have cats and dogs. And she's thinking, like, why would you? Like, why would you know anything about me anymore? And it's just this, like, very odd tension. And he also makes a note of like, I didn't think that you would have cats or dogs because none of your characters do. None of your characters have pets. I don't know what you've read of mine. I take your bag and I put it by the stairs. Wow, you say, looking left into the living room. It's like walking into the breach house. Why? It just feels like it. AKA it feels like walking into like home, right? Or this like chapter time of their lives or whatever. And we end up learning, again, there's like more awkward tension between the two of them. Eventually her husband returns home. He was like out for a jog. And she's like, I completely forgot that my husband jogs. And that's why he's late right now. And like, how have I already forgotten him? And then her husband hugs her, but they have this like awkward interaction in front of Yesh because she's like, I don't know how, I like pretty much like, I don't know what to do with my hands, right? Like, I don't know how to operate in front of him. And it's just this like, again, awkward times. Her husband and Yesh sit out front and they continue chatting, and she goes inside to cook dinner. And while she's doing so, she is thinking about life, how she stayed in Brooklyn with Carson for a week, and how she refused to talk to Yesh the entire time that she was there. Carson told me that you told her bullshit things about savings and timing, and about how you had a friend in how your friend in publishing had left for a job in finance, and you could write a draft of the novel on the cheap in Atlanta, which was much more affordable than New York. And you tried out some allusion to the thread of fate. Are you in or are you out? Carson asked. You didn't answer. Then let her go, she said, and put the phone down. I went to my mother's in Phoenix. I was there 5 months. Strange thing to say under the circumstances, but it was a beautiful time with her. My last long, uninterrupted time with her before she died. She did not once question my decisions. I needed help, and she gave it to me without hesitation. She found the agency and sat with me on their love seat as we looked through 3 binders of people without names or addresses. Just professions, personal statements, and photographs. I chose the couple looking at each other, not the camera. She did the classes with me. I didn't want the drugs. When I went into labor, the only place I could look was in her eyes. You're going to be okay, she said to me over and over. When the baby finally came, it was my mother who said, oh, sweetie, it's a girl. We had an hour with her, and then a proper goodbye. She was never mine. I always knew that. I could not keep her. In my head, I call her Daisy. So she was pregnant. She came back like a couple months pregnant from France. We'll talk about it a little bit later. And so as she's like cooking dinner and she's thinking about the rest of her life kind of after that, I was in grad school in Pennsylvania 3 years later when the phone rang. Ivan died, you said. He had died that morning. It was impossible to hang up. I listened. Ivan had gotten an infection that tore through his intestines in a few weeks. You and Sam had been there in the hospital with him the whole time. At the end, you took turns reading him Joyce, Shakespeare, Dylan Thomas. We talked for 3 hours. At some point, you started reading me some of those passages that you'd read to Ivan. Then you read something that made you think of me, you said. It was from Journey to the End of the Night by Celine. The narrator was remembering a goodbye that he'd had with a girl named Molly at the train station. He hadn't said goodbye properly. He hadn't appreciated what they had together. It was beautiful. Full of regret. There was a line about how he'd kissed her, but not as he should have. I've tried to find that passage in that book so many times, but I never have. You read me those lines, but you didn't say any more about them, and I didn't ask you to. We didn't speak of what blew us apart. I did not tell you about our child, or that I could not write a story in grad school without a baby in it. You called a few more times that winter. You asked me if we could see each other in the spring, and I said no. Oh, how I wanted to see you. That lonely winter in Pennsylvania. Those calls reawakened all the love and all the wounds. I couldn't trust you again with my heart. I was glad when you didn't call back. The next year, I got a poem in the mail, a poem by D.H. Lawrence, copied in blue ballpoint on a yellow legal paper. The elephant, the huge old beast, it began, is slow to mate. They wait for the sympathy of their vast, shy hearts slowly, slowly to rouse. I wasn't an elephant. My heart had never been slow. I tore it up. So that was the last time that they had talked was, probably 15, however many years ago, 17 years ago. And so he's there. They have dinner. It's delicious. They have a little bit more kind of bonding, kind of like inside jokes almost, where he knows that her food is going to be so good. He doesn't even have to try her sauces because it's going to be delicious. And her sons are surprised at how much he just dives right into it. Because they learned to cook together when they were in college, He showed her a bunch of these recipes and stuff. And they have dinner. Everything's going well. And then afterwards, after dinner, they decide to play the whatever the Funny Buster, whatever the card game is. And her sons know what it is. And they're amazed that he knows what it is. They're like, how do you know this game? She taught it and she kept it as a tradition. And so he's like, yeah, our friend Ivan showed it to us many years ago. I didn't know it came from Ivan, Silas, her husband, says. Harry, her son, can't understand these years before him, before our family existed. He looks at Silas. You weren't there? He shakes his head. I didn't know them then. Jack, dealing the cards, is taking in this information easily, but Harry looks like he would like to go up to his room and mull over the questions of time and existence for a few hours. So they begin to play the game. Oh, excuse me, Silas. I could tell that you were up to a little mischief. Yes. May I have the heart of the lover? Yes, you may. Silas passes the king of hearts face up, close to you, trying to get you to touch it before saying thank you. I thought you might, you say, and reach for the card, and we get ready to scream. A half inch before you touch it, you say thank you, and pick up the king with a flourish that makes the boys laugh. Silas, you continue. Yes? May I please have the heart of the lover's wife? No, you may not. Well, you can't blame a guy for trying, he says. Silas and I chuckle, and Harry asks what was so funny, and now I'm the one who wants to go upstairs and ponder time in existence for a while. They play the cards for a little bit, they have some good times, and then the boys all go upstairs, and Silas goes with the boys to put them to bed. Great meeting you after all this time, Silas says, and gives you a loose hug and a few pats. I don't want them to go upstairs, but they do. Good guy, you say. Yeah, he is. And then she makes them tea, and her and Yesh just sit in the living room for a little bit and have a little bit of back and forth discussion. He brings up her mother's death, and he's like, I really wish that you would have called me. I would have been there for you. And she just kind of ignores it and tries to play it off. And it's just really, really sad. And internally, she's just thinking about all of the times that she wished she would have called him and said stuff, and remembers a conversation with her husband where her husband was like, hey, this is the perfect time. You need to tell him. You should tell him eventually about the baby, about your daughter. But she doesn't. It's never really a good time, right? She ends up going to bed. Yesh sleeps on the couch, and then the next morning, they get up early, and she walks him out to his car, and he gives her a book on the way out, and it's a book about Iceland, and inside of it is a piece of paper with the handwritten passage that he had read to her at Ivan's death, right? Or after Ivan's death, the one about regret. Handwritten, folded into the book, and she doesn't know if it was there on purpose or not. Yeah, and then he just drives away and he leaves. And she was thinking she was going to tell him the night before, right? She had her chance. It was right there. For a long time, I said nothing out of anger. I punished you with the only weapon I had. Silence. And now I feel like I would hurt you more by telling you. You don't seem strong enough for it somehow. And then her husband finds her out on the driveway, staring at this book and this handwritten passage thing. And he's like, you didn't tell him, did you? And she's like, no, I will one day. I'll tell him eventually. And they move on. And we go into part 3. It's a couple years later. I think it's 5 years later or so. It's Thursday. Jack is a liar when it comes to pain. Jack being her, I believe, her youngest son. Jack is a liar when it comes to pain. He'll say it's a 2 when it's a 5 when he can barely speak. If it's really bad, he'll hand over his book and let one of us read it to him. It's been bad for a week straight now. He has brain cancer, which is really fucked up to just drop after I'm emotionally invested in this people, and then you're gonna drop a child having brain cancer on me. It's really fucked up. Spoiler alert, he lives, he survives this book, but it's all very scary, and it talks a lot about the hospitals and the traumaticness of having like a child with medical issues like this, right? It gets talked about quite a bit. That'll be covered for like the rest of part 3. And part 3 is where it starts to get really, really sad for like a multitude of reasons. So heads up on child cancer talk in general, and death and sad things, okay? This is where it's about to turn sideways really, really quick. This Thursday in part 3 that we open up in, he's doing really, really bad. Jack is really, really sick. He ends up having another seizure, is usually what these like really bad pain weeks lead up to. And then once he has the seizure, it's kind of like out of his system for a little bit, and he'll go back to feeling better for a couple more weeks. And it's just a lot to deal with. It's really detailed about how it's a little bit harder on the family, because to him, he comes out of the seizure and he feels great again and just wants to move on with life. But obviously, his mother and dad and brother who just witnessed him go through this medical event are like traumatized, right? And they're like slower to come to and like moving on from it. And so it like details this experience and how he wants to continue and do this like really dangerous surgery. It's going to end up being this like 9-hour surgery. They're going to have to fly out to like Houston to this specialist doctor that's going to like operate on his brainstem to remove this cancer. He had it originally, he went through chemo, he beat it, it came back, and now he just wants it to be gone. Like he just wants to be done with this. And so he being, I think at this point he's maybe like 12-ish. I don't know if it's ever really explicitly said. And he's like, I want to go through with the surgery, Mom. Like, I can't keep doing this. I don't like this. I want to go to school. I want to be a normal kid. I don't want to keep missing it. I just want to go to school, or I just want to go to the doctor and get this like chopped out of me, right? But obviously these surgeries come with risks, and it's something she's really hesitant on. And she's been like just the not knowing what the right answer is for your kid, right? This discussion and this like thinking and whatnot gets interrupted when her phone rings or vibrates or whatever. And there is a text message from Sam Gallagher the next day. It's Friday, and it's her husband who insists that she goes, but she doesn't want to because she's thinking of the surgery. And if they're going through with this, they could get called at like any moment and have to fly down to Houston. They might only give us like a single day to get down there for pre-op. And so Silas, her husband, he's like, hey, even if they called us like right now, we could get there by Sunday, right? Like we have time. We don't talk about the costs anymore, the unpaid time that he's taken off teaching, or the fact that I haven't published anything in 5 years. She also, by the way, is like a famous author. She wrote like 4 books that all did like commercially really, really well. And she became a writer, and she hasn't written in a long time after her son got sick, and she hasn't like had the motivation to be able to do anything. But anyway, so she's like, okay, yeah, you're right. Like we'll have time. It's just one night, he says, hugging me outside the revolving doors. I'm so sorry. He means about Yesh, but I can only feel the sadness of leaving them. I don't want to go, I say, his arms still around me, my lips against the stubble on his neck. I hate hospitals so much, which is also so hard to think about. I hate thinking about hospitals too. Again, the way I've talked about this a couple times on the channel. My sister was born with a disability and was like in and out of hospitals and surgeries like constantly for the first like 10 years of her life. And so much of like she was born when I was like 7. So much of my like 7 to like I moved out of my house was in and out of hospitals with her, especially when she was like really, really young. And we were like pretty explicitly told by the doctors that they didn't think she would live after like 5 years old. Hearing that when you're 7 years old and realizing your sister's going to die before she gets how old you are, by the way, is a really, really bad mindfuck. And so we were in and out of hospitals constantly. Obviously significantly worse for her. Don't get me wrong. I'm not taking away from that. But being a fellow child in a waiting room constantly is also terrible. And so much of this, I just like, this got me so bad. Like this whole story and her perspective of being in the hospitals and like watching people around you being sick is like so hard. So touching. And I think a lot of it is because of how like cut and dry the writing is and like straightforward the writing is. Like it's not, and I've talked about this also of like, I like when things don't tell me how to feel. Like just give me the facts and like let me make my own interpretation and like not assign value, but like assign my own emotion to it almost. Like don't force me to feel something. Don't tell me how to feel about things. And this book does that. And it allows for a lot of like interpretation and I don't know, like I said, like placement of things on these characters because you're just getting the straight facts. And I really, really enjoy that about this. So she flies to Atlanta. She drives up to the hospital. She has a hotel that's like right down the road. And she goes and visits Yesh. She goes in the room. It is like packed. The room is large and full of people, 8 or 10 of them, all men inside, a few standing, all staring at the TV suspended on the far wall. Something happens and they yell at the TV all at once. A few jump to their feet. Yash is in the center, tilted upright in the bed, wearing a Georgia Bulldogs cap with the tag still on, yelling with the rest of them. He's the only one who sees me come in. His face lights up like it used to, and he sees me take in the oxygen cannula and the IV bags and the Foley catheter coming off the side of his bed. And he remembers where we are and looks at me apologetically. He holds out his hand and he's like, I didn't think you would come. She says, of course I came, but Jack, he's fine. And she's like honored or whatever that he would remember this about her son and the things that are going on with him. Because it's not like they like talk consistently or anything, but they did talk a little bit, and they have talked a little off and on over the last 5 years of kind of sharing just like general like life update type things. And so he's aware of Jack's cancer and coming back and the surgery and all this other stuff. And so she's in this room and they have her take a seat at this chair right next to him. And like Yesh's mother refers to her as the guest of honor. And she instead says that she's an interloper and how she just doesn't feel like she belongs here at all. And his mother reassures her and thanks her for being there and that they'll talk later. And it's just really sad. And so she ends up like sitting next to him and they hold hands and the games are on and all this stuff is happening. And she's like looking around the room and she's trying to find Sam. Because obviously Sam is going to be here, right? Like he and Yesh continue to be friends. So she's looking and she's wondering if like he'll even talk to her. Like would he even acknowledge her existence? Would she speak to him? And she realizes that he's not in the room. And Yesh interrupts her thoughts and he's like, man, can you believe all of these people are here? Like I feel I'm so blessed right now. And one of the nurses comes in and tells him to breathe with his tube better. And talks to Jordan about keeping his like oxygen cannula in and about how they want to keep him in the 90s for his like oxygen level. She says, okay, awesome. And he says, I missed you so much, Hank. We didn't stay in touch after his visit to Maine, or I didn't. He sent us a thank you note. He wrote me a letter or two, maybe more. Things blur after Jack got sick. About a year ago, he called and told me that he had cancer. Jack was recovering from his 3rd surgery, and we talked a lot that spring about summer. I put him in touch with Jack's oncologist who recommended someone in Atlanta. Yesh had chemo, radiation, and then he was placed in a clinical trial and the tumors in his lungs started shrinking. Within a few months, one disappeared entirely. He texted me a listing for a small house outside of Atlanta, and below it he wrote, the worker bee just bought a house. That fall, I was invited to Boston University to give an evening reading and visit the graduate fiction workshop beforehand. The workshop was taught by the writer Ray Hart. The last fall had been Ray Hart's first story to appear in print. Since then, he had published 2 perfect novels 12 years apart. And so it just continues to talk about that author and how he had such like a big place in her life as well. And she had reached out to Yesh telling him about this, graduate thing that she had gone to. And it was this very, very like touching moment that she got to meet this author that like had this really big impact on her life, and he has said that she had a big impact on his life, and it was this very like full circle career moment of like happiness and getting like literally everything that she wanted out of life, right? And having the beautiful kids and the husband and a writer and in a beautiful comfy home with the dogs and the cat, and like everything is perfect except her kid got cancer, and this like writing workshop thing that she went to went like completely off the rails, and it was not very good. And like it was just like very emotional for her. And then all this stuff with Yesh also getting sick, and it was like so good but also like so bad, and kind of the balance of all of that is just very, very interesting. She and Yesh have a little bit more back and forth. She has more recollection about the time that they talked in Yesh's original battle with cancer and how it had gone away, and it was this like really optimistic time, and then obviously it came back. And then eventually Sam comes in. Sam is there. I've never known anything about Sam's children or Yesh's relationship with them. He's always claimed his friends abandoned him once they had kids. Outside in the hallway, the younger boy is sobbing. Sam and I look at each other. I'm sorry, I try to say to him with my eyes. I'm sorry you can't protect them from this. Sam has 2 boys who are also like obsessed with Yesh. Like all of these children are obsessed with him, right? All of his friends' kids, all of his like nieces and nephews, all of them like love him so incredibly deeply, which I think also just adds the extra layer of like pain that he never had his own family, and he never got to meet his daughter, and he never had the chance to be a dad when like very clearly this is like a key thing of his personality is like loving kids and like getting along with them really, really well, which I think is just like the extra like sucker punch of it all, because same thing that never gets like explicitly said or explicitly talked about. It's just like a thing. This is a terrible day to cry because I have like red mascara on, and so if you see a teardrop come down and it looks like a blood, it's not, I promise. But anyway, so Sam is back. He sits on the other side. So now it's Sam and Jordan on either side of Yesh in the hospital bed. And eventually they end up kicking everybody out because the doctors are about to do their rounds and, you know, check in and, you know, talk about what's going on. So everybody leaves except for Sam and Jordan. The doctor comes in and he says hello. And the doctor turns to me, Mrs. Thakar, which is Yesh's last name. None of us corrects him. And I shake his hand. We're all caught in this performance. Yesh pretending that he isn't dying. Sam and the doctor, that medicine still has something to offer him. And me in the role of a devoted wife at his bedside. After the doctor leaves, the family kind of like comes and goes back in the room and saying hello and hanging out with him and stuff. And one of the boys walks out. And then Yesh is like, yeah, that's Jared, which is like one of his nephews. And he's like, hey, I really want you to talk some sense into him, you know? I really worry about the kid. You know, his parents have full hands with him. He doesn't have a clue what he wants to do. He's not being practical. There's probably some girl out in LA that he wants to go and see and get pregnant. And he sees the expression of my face change, misinterprets. Sorry, some very smart young woman. Just talk to him, will you? I worry about him and I can't help him anymore. Pretty much like, hey, can you go tell him to not chase his dreams and move to LA, like he needs to stay in school and keep his stuff together. Okay, I'll talk to him. Thank you. Tell him what's what. Tell him how hard it is, the creative life, the risks you have to take. Tell him about all the people you know, including me, who don't make it. What do you know about taking risks? I want to ask him. You've played it so safe, Mr. Cautious, and I protected you the one time that things went off the rails. It's an unpleasant feeling, having this anger at someone who is dying. Ugh, again, my freaking heart. And so they have a little bit of back and forth. She does talk to Jared. It's, I don't know, a cute conversation, if you want to call it that. Again, there's a lot more to it. Like, again, everything serves a purpose. All of these conversations are parallels to what happened before, or it's like some type of like therapeutic experience and maybe saying something to him that she wishes that she could have said to Yesh, and like realizing the importance of all these different things, right? I can't read you every single thing in this book as much as I want to because I just can't. I recommend you go and reading it and get more of the emotional punches from it all and the connections, and to see more of that, because again, I do think this is very well written and very intentionally done. But they talk, back and forth, whatever. She goes back to sitting by her like dedicated chair at his bedside. He continues to stare at me. It's hard to return his gaze, the way he's looking at me. You're so beautiful, babe, he says. Babe, a word from another universe. It's physically disorienting. Yesh, his uncle says from across the room, but Yesh ignores him. He sees I have something on my mind. What? He says, what is it? But Uncle Percy is louder. Listen up, you two lovebirds. You need to tell us, what do you want for dinner? I cannot put another carton of pork lo mein in my delicate stomach, he says, patting his belly. And then she ends up having a flashback to one of the questions that she got asked on one of her initial like book tours that she had gone on. And the question was, love in your novels, I think, acts as a form of hope. Why hope? Do you believe this? I was on stage with my Icelandic editor, and there's a bunch of Icelandic names that I'm not even going to try to slaughter. I'm sorry. We never met before this trip, my last trip before Jack got sick. Most people ask me about sex, not love. I know, I've seen this online, but I want to know about love. Isn't love a form of hope? I said. No, love is crushing. Love is something you let yourself feel at your own peril despite your better sense. She wore all black and bright red lipstick, and I saw her face how serious she was. After a few seconds, she forced herself to soften. True, it's all those things, I said, but where would we be if we didn't feel it? I think it's the only form of hope that we have. For our survival, I mean. What good is any other virtue without love? She goes on to ask her, so in this interview, right? She's asking her, I read in several interviews from years ago that Independent People is one of your favorite books. Is this true? Independent People being the book that Yesh gave her when he visited her in Maine, right? The Icelandic book. or book in Iceland or whatever. It is maybe my very favorite. There's some spontaneous clapping from the audience. Why? Why this one about a miserable sheep farmer? You know how you can remember exactly when and where you read certain books? A great novel, a truly great one, not only captures a particular fictional experience, it alters and intensifies the way you experience your own life while you're reading it, and it preserves it, like a time capsule. Even though nearly everyone in the audience is Icelandic and English is not their first language, I can feel that they are with me. When I think of reading independent people, I remember the summer air coming through our windows and the quilt we had on our bed, and my boys, so little then. And I remember Silas, my husband, reading it right after I did, and we started calling each other Charter. It's Bjartur. The audience burst out laughing, and I figured it was because I'd butchered the pronunciation of his name. My editor was amused, too. You called each other Charter, really? As a term of endearment. More laughter. I think this has never happened in our country, making a pet name from this hard and complicated character, she said, smiling and shaking her head. How did this book come to find you? Most Americans don't know it. A friend gave it to me. For a moment, I was barefoot in our road watching his car disappear. I could tell she wanted to ask more, but she sensed something and veered away. She smiled, thanked me for coming, and opened up to questions from the audience. So, cut to, she takes a break from being at his side and goes to get food, runs into one of his aunts. You were the one, she says. I shake my head. You were. He never recovered, she says. And if your books are any indication, he's certainly not the only one you've chewed up and spat out. So she's like, Jesus Christ. He always told me he had one nice aunt, like an evil one and a good one, and I really hope that that was the evil one. So, okay, I guess, awesome. So she continues to get her food, and while trying to find a spot to eat, she ends up sitting next to his childhood friend that they went and visited before she went to France, right? The alcoholic one with the two kids and the wife and everything. She's him. First time she's seen him, obviously. And she's like, oh, yeah, how's it going? How are you doing? And then she goes on to say, like, yeah, you know, he's so happy that everyone's here. Yeah, everyone's here for a day or two. But you've done well for yourself. I hold up my fork. Please don't tell me that I'm the one that got away. You got away, all right. I was pushed. He shrugs. He pushes everyone away one time or another. It's temporary. You know that. I didn't know that. At the time, it felt like the end of the world. Sam comes up to us, apologizes for interrupting. Can you come back to the room, Jordan? Excuse me. You go to Yashur. He needs you. I follow Sam down the hallway. Outside of the room, he says he gets this way at night, really agitated. I've asked the nurse to give him some Ativan. Maybe you could go in. Maybe you could, sing to him. And this is a reference to when Sam had his thesis, his finals and stuff, and he was freaking out and getting super uber stressed out. She would scratch his back and rub his back and sing to him to calm him down at night so he could sleep. Assumption being that it's a small house with thin walls. They all heard her singing as well. And so this is a comfort thing. And so she goes in there, she holds his hand, and she is singing to him to help comfort and soothe. Yes. And it's really, really sad. We're almost done. We're at 80%. We have less than 40 pages left of the book. We're in the home stretch. After she sings to him and he's asleep, she talks to Sam a little bit about her flight. She was supposed to have a flight early in the morning, but because she wasn't really able to talk to Yesh before he got agitated and ended up going to sleep, she wants to come back to have a proper goodbye with him and stuff. And so she's going to reschedule her flight. She has not really been checking her phone. She got a little preoccupied, right? So she went into this really freaking out, not wanting to be away from her kids, not wanting to miss any messages about Jack's surgery or anything. But, in the face of this, stuff going on, she has just been involved and time has flown, and time in a hospital doesn't really exist anyway. Time in a hospital is warp speed, crazy weirdness. So it's finally the end of the night, and she goes back to her hotel and she calls her husband to talk to him about rescheduling her flight for the following evening, that she needs to stay and say goodbye to him and stuff. It's really hard, right? It's a really hard conversation. Her husband is exhausted, dealing with the kid who's really, really sick, and then the other child, and it's just a lot to put on one guy, especially when he's this ill, and it's just a lot, right? He's very just overwhelmed and stressed out and whatnot. And so eventually they have back and forth, and she ends the phone call saying, I miss you too. There was this moment today when he asked me if I thought he would find out everything once he was dead, and I had this cold wave come over me, and I felt like I should tell him. Because I had this whole conversation about, like, death and what happens when you die, and if you get to, like, learn everything there ever was to learn, or to, like, know all the secrets of the universe and all the stuff you missed out on, and blah, 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 and how it's this, like, just what happens when you die conversations. You should tell him, he says, in his clipped, definitive teacher's voice that annoys me. Silas, you always said you were going to. You always said I was going to. I say, I don't know why it matters to you so much. I told you about it. He's silent. It hurt him, how long I'd waited. It was a rocky moment in our marriage. I told him because I was pregnant with Harry. And even though I'd lied on the forms, the obstetrician took one look at me and knew. And that felt weird. Her knowing and Silas not. It matters to me because it matters to you, he says finally. I know it does. It comes up. It comes up and then it goes back down. Don't you want to let it go? It's too late. I missed my moment. He'll just be angry and hurt and not have time to process it. You don't know that. I think it might actually kill him. It's not going to kill him. And then everyone will be like, that nasty girl from Maine came and killed our Yashi, and they'll put me in Atlanta jail for the rest of my life. I'm speaking with a southern accent now. I have a very good southern accent, truth be told. He laughs, but he's not amused. You've been given this opportunity. You're not going to get another. Do it for yourself. You've protected him long enough. So weird that you said that. I was thinking that today, that I protected him. Why? Because you loved him. It didn't feel like love. I was angry at him. I was so angry. I wanted to punish him. He who always knew everything. It's going to get in the way of saying goodbye. Just tell him. I can hear how tired he is. I have the impulse to launch a real argument or tirade about men and their ignorance of women's lived experiences and how we cope with so much they cannot understand. But they always make us feel in some sort of debt. But he might only get a few hours of sleep if Jack has a bad night. And Silas is the exception to the rule, so I let it go. We say our goodnights and hang up. As soon as his voice is gone, I had that feeling I often have when I'm away from my family, like they are moving farther and farther away from me, beginning to flicker faintly as distant stars, and I will never ever reach them again. It feels like a premonition of the fact that someday, one by one, we will be separated from each other forever. A siren wails past. My remaining hours in this town stretch out before me. Too long and too short. Which is also crazy because I just had that conversation, actually, a very similar conversation with like my husband. I was gone for a week for a work trip. And it always feels like that. Every time I go away, and this is like anxiety, and I probably need to get like updated medication, whatever you want to call it. I don't know, depression, anxiety, whatever the fuck is wrong with me mentally. But every time that I leave, I'm always like, hey, I'm going to be gone for a whole week, and you're going to realize how much better off you are without me, and you're going to divorce me and realize that you actually secretly hate me. And this was like the moment that you needed to realize that like you're free and better off without me. Really shitty. And I've always felt that way like my whole life. Like anytime like I was away from my parents for too long, I hate the same thing where I was like, they're going to realize how much of a monster that I really am and no one really loves me. Whatever you want to call that. And so again, reading this book and the stuff that she's going through and like keeping secrets from people almost to like protect them and just not want to talk about things too. I'm just like, Jesus Christ, dude. Like if my life would have taken a couple different turns, I was like, I could so easily be in this like exact woman's shoes and having these exact reactions to things. Like I could exactly see my life playing out in this exact same way, and it's really, really like mindfucky. So she goes to sleep. Cut to Saturday, and she wakes up super, super early, and she decides to go into the hospital and go and see him again. You're here. He takes my hand and tucks it with two hands against his breastbone. It strains my back, reaching over the bed rail, but I don't pull away. When my cancer came back, he says, yours was the only voice I wanted to hear. Came back? It was minor the first time. At least, that was the impression I got. He shakes his head. What's major and minor in life? No one tells you up front. It was a procedure, some radiation, all over in a few months. That's when I went to Maine, after the treatment was over. You didn't tell me. There weren't any friends on the coast. I just didn't want to die without seeing you again. Oh my God. It's all going downhill from here, guys. It's literally all going downhill from here. Sam wakes up and then offers to go and get them coffee, and they have a little bit more like back and forth, and they have some reminiscing going on about the three of them in college and the good old times and how some of them remember parts of things and some of them don't remember, and it's like kind of this like bits and pieces of like putting all of their story together, and it's cute. When Sam steps away to go and get more coffee, Yash leans over. Can I tell you a secret, Hank? which is also cute. He's using their old nickname. Yeah, tell me. I know you have to go in a few hours, so I just wanted to tell you first. I'm not dying. No? I'm getting better. I can feel it. I feel bad because everyone's here, but I'm not dying anymore. Don't tell anyone yet. I want to enjoy it a little longer. All these people, is that bad? Of course not. I can tell them tomorrow. All right. But thank you for being here. I'll never forget it, with everything you have going on. He looks at me with so much concern. My eyes get watery. He squeezes my hand. He's going to be fine, Hank. He is. We're all going to be fine. Cue more family, kind of coming in and out or whatever. And then he leans over again and he's like, hey, what I do want to tell you though, Hank, is that I'm not angry at you anymore. I laugh. He's serious. Angry at me? For a long time, I felt like you sort of enjoyed making me suffer and punishing me, stringing me along. He pauses to breathe, his oxygen dipping from 91 to 89. Stringing me along and extracting more and more apologies without ever forgiving me. I remember an elephant poem and a paragraph about Molly the prostitute. Celine was a Nazi sympathizer, by the way. I don't remember an apology. I apologized so many times in so many letters. Did he? I have no recollection of this. All I remember is other people's writing, other people's thoughts copied out in his hand. You thought I was toying with you? I say. I thought it was pretty immature that you wouldn't talk to me for 3 years when we had been in what my mind was a pretty serious relationship. Oh, a pretty serious relationship, but not serious enough to show up in New York. More of a drive in the opposite direction kind of serious. I worried we still couldn't have this conversation. You've never even tried to have this conversation. I tried for years. You never let me explain. What is there to explain? I was there. You weren't. There were reasons for that. We had something kind of amazing. I know. And you threw it away. I didn't. I didn't mean to. I freaked out temporarily. I was 23. I was 23 too. And then a flurry of activity in the doorway. And then she looks down at her phone and the numbers don't make sense. It's already past noon. She's already missed her flight. So she calls her husband and her son picks up. They have a bit of conversation back and forth. This is where he again talks about feeling like he's a ghost in school. Just when I start to sort of feel like a regular-ish kid who actually shows up, I have to leave again. And it's just like this like really whole sad idea of this sickness and like it's just very, very rough stuff, right? That I can't talk about because I will just continue to cry. And then she ends up hanging up and then she's going to book a flight for early evening. So she's just going to push back the flight a couple more hours. More people visit, coming and going. She again takes her place by his bedside and holds his hand as he like visits all of his family members. And he even has like a guy from work that comes in and says goodbye to him. And again, it's very clear that, like, yeah, she always played it down about, like, not getting along with people or, like, not being loved or maybe not feeling loved. But obviously there's this, like, complete outpouring of all these people that are, like, obsessed with him, right? He had talked about, like, being lonely on the one visit that he had to Maine and how he didn't want to buy a house because he would just fill it with his loneliness because he didn't have anybody or anything. And all of his friends were getting married and forgetting about him and blah, blah, blah. But at this point, we're finding out all of his friends are visiting with their kids who also love him. So like he's been in their lives and stuff. And so there's a little bit of like a disconnect of how he feels versus like what's actually happening. You know what I mean? Or like the love that he feels versus the love that is like given to him. I don't, if that makes sense, hopefully. But all these people come by. And it goes to work too, because he was like complaining about work stuff and about how he doesn't feel appreciated, but like obviously he's very, very loved in the workplace and like they get along really well and stuff. So this all comes and goes and they end up all leaving and he ends up turning over to Jordan. He says, "Let's not argue, babe." He says, "No, let's not." I sound like a Hemingway character. "I was thinking about how Silas got you to forgive him with a postcard. He must be some writer." He's not done arguing. So what that's in reference to is when he visited in Maine and the boys were talking about how they met, I guess the Jordan and Silas's first date was supposed to be on this hike, but he went to the wrong mountain and he wrote her a card from the other mountain that he was at to like prove that he did try to show up. He's just dumb or something like that. You know what I mean? It was cutie little jokey thing. Obviously though, this is very upsetting to Yesh, who has begged and sent all kinds of letters and everything to like express his love and forgiveness and stuff. And so that's where this like bitterness is coming from of like, oh, you could forgive him, but you couldn't forgive me. He's not done arguing. All those years I tried to reach you, he says, and you shut me out for one lapse of judgment. It wasn't a lapse. I was a lapse. I didn't mean it to end. I thought we could talk it over. After you didn't show up, why not before I left Paris? I called on Christmas, remember? I wanted to talk, but you were in a rotten mood. Things were hard that fall. Hank, if I were given 100 chances to do it over again, I would do it differently every single time. I loved you. I did. I just panicked a little. I know. It was a real commitment. He shakes his head and lowers his mask. His oxygen mask. He's moved from the cannula to a full-on mask now. It's getting worse and worse, his breathing. No, it wasn't that, or not only that. I mean, I was committed to you. His voice is much clearer, but the words come out slowly. I was at the beginning of my life. I wanted to do so much, and I was barely responsible for myself. He stops to suck in more oxygen from the mask. I didn't know if I could carry us both, you know? Please don't look at me like that. I was broke. You were broke and you had debt. We weren't being practical. I didn't want to be like my father, saddled with the responsibility so young, history repeating itself. I wasn't sure you understood the consequences. Consequences? Let's talk about consequences, Yash. I was pregnant. I was 5 months pregnant in that Delta terminal waiting for you. And this is why I never told him. This slow shattering of his face, I never wanted to see it. He pulls away from me. He says something and is frustrated that I can't understand him. His oxygen has plummeted. I lift the mask back over his mouth and nose. Breathe, I say. You have to breathe, babe. She called him babe. Above the mask, his eyes are flashing back and forth. Sam comes back in and around the bed to his spot on the other side. Go away, I want to tell him. Leave us alone. Yash makes a few sounds we can't understand. He turns to Sam. Tell Cole not to come, he says slowly and with great effort. I'm not going to make it to Tuesday. Cole was like one of their last friends that was going to come and visit, who wouldn't be able to make it for a couple more days. And they were talking about it earlier, where it was like, yeah, just have him come Tuesday. That'll be fine. Like, I'll see him then. And then now her like worst fear is coming true of like, she's going to tell him this and then it's going to kill him. And then now it's like, well, shit. It's literally like, what's happening? Like, now what do you do? Sam and I look at each other. Yes shuts his eyes on us. The nurse comes in to check his vitals. I leave the room before Sam can question me. I return to the alcove and sit with my back to everything. I take my phone out of my bag to check the time. The home screen is plastered with texts and missed calls from Silas, Jack, Harry, and the family group chat, and my heart begins to race. Jack has gotten a date for the brainstem surgery. I scroll reluctantly through all the messages. Wednesday. This coming Wednesday. They want us in Houston by tomorrow night to begin pre-op testing on Monday morning. Jack's texts are ecstatic, all caps with happy dancing emojis. The percentages, the numbers, mean nothing to him. All I can think about are the cold numbers and the risks, the cognitive damage, paralysis, death, and all he can see is his life returned to him. Silas's follow-up texts are logistical. He's gotten the three of us on a flight out of Portland tomorrow afternoon in a room with 2 queens at the hotel attached to the hospital, and has arranged for his favorite sub to take over all of his classes for the week, and for Harry to stay with his best friend Eli's family. And then Harry has written to say he has nothing going on in school the next few days and he wants to come with us and use, okay, get it together, Kaylee, and use his savings to pay for it, which is so cute. Silas writes that he has got Harry on our flight too, and Jack writes with more emojis that Harry is coming too. Harry has coped with Jack's illness by pretending it isn't happening. The first 2 surgeries were close by in Boston, but he wouldn't come to the hospital. Now he's coming to Houston. The tears start as I write them back. I want to call Silas and talk to all of them, but I'm crying too hard and it would scare them. Jordan? Sam sits in the little chair next to mine. Are you okay? I hold up my phone. My son got a date for the big surgery. That's good. Yesh told him about Jack. When? Wednesday in Houston? I wipe my face with the heel of my palms. Sorry, I can't seem to stop. Did Yesh tell you? No, he's not speaking to anyone. What happened? I'm not sure he's going to talk to me again. I hope he'll talk to you. He nods. He reminds me of Silas then, the way he doesn't ask anymore. I'm going to get us some soup. He comes back in 15 minutes with 2 tomato soups, a grilled cheese sandwich, and a cup of tea. I've mostly stopped crying. I really dreaded seeing you, Sam. He nods. I had some apprehension too, Jordan. This is way too late, but I'm sorry. I truly am. I behaved badly. I'm sorry, too. I wasn't very honest with you or anyone, really. I knew. I probably knew before either of you knew. I think some perverse part of me wanted to see how it all played out. I can still see you on the ground, he says. At the party? I didn't mean to push you. I know that. I can still see the way that you were looking at me. When I think of my boys going off to college and behaving like that, he shakes his head and crushes the sandwich wrapper into a small ball. Are you still religious? No, Yash never told you. We didn't speak of you. I know nothing about your life. He nods, taking this in. After Ivan died, I had a crisis of faith, existential, explosive. It blew up my marriage, estranged me from my parents and siblings, my community. Yash was basically the only one left. He was right there for me. He carried me through it. He had his own grief about Ivan and his own struggles, but he carried me on his back for 2 years. I wanted to die, and he wouldn't let me. He leans closer to me. I don't know the whole story, but since the moment he met you, I know he would have done anything for you. Except that one time when I really needed him to be there. You probably won't believe me, but when he arrived at my door that night, I told him he was making a mistake. I knew how much he loved you because he'd risked our friendship for you, but he's complicated. I can't say I fully understand him even now. He chose to spend his life alone. It's not something that just happened to him. Rounds happen. She doesn't want to go in there, but Sam does, and she decides to go back to the hotel. She gathers her things, she goes back to the hotel, and she ends up calling Silas to tell him she will not be getting on the flight to go home that afternoon. And Silas is like, I already bought tickets for us to fly from Portland to Houston. And she says, I know, but I'll leave here tomorrow and I'll just meet you guys in Houston, okay? We had this fight right in the room with all these people around, and I told him, and he wouldn't speak to me, and I have to go back. I can't leave it like that. He is silent. I'll meet you in Houston tomorrow. I promise I'll be there. Is this about Yesh or is this about Jack? What do you mean? You're his rock. He's never seen you scared. He looks at you and he thinks, I'm going to be okay. He takes a breath. You cannot fall apart on him now. He hangs up. Silas doesn't call me back. God, what a terrible position to be in, right? God, what a terrible position to be in. Sunday comes around and she goes into the room, and Sam has been sleeping in the hospital the last 2 weeks since Yesh has been admitted. He has a cot at the foot of the bed where he stays all the time. He doesn't even go home. He only sees his family when they come and visit and stuff. It's very, again, sad, supportive, whatever you want to call it. And she goes in here and he's still asleep and he's snoring at the foot of the bed. And Yesh with his head tipped to one side the way he used to fall asleep reading. The Johnny slipping off both shoulders, wires taped to his bare chest. Oh, my love, my old love. His breaths are faster, shallower. He's working so hard to breathe. I drop into my chair and take his hand over the bed rail. I was scared you'd left, he says, muffled through the mask. I shake my head. I couldn't do that. Jack, he says. Sam must have told him. Wednesday. You have to go home. I'll meet them there tomorrow. You should be there with them now. I want to be here a little while longer. Then tell me, Yash says. Please? I nod. First, I examine the bed rail between us. I find the little button and push it. It slides down easily. He reaches for both of my hands. We are much closer now. Tell me everything. And now is going to be the true test of if Kaylee can read and not sob her freaking eyeballs out, okay? I tell him that I didn't know until early October, that I tried to write, but I ripped up every letter I started, that I called him at his dad's and at work, and he never called me back, that I was 5 weeks, then 6 weeks, then 7. The French cutoff was 10. I didn't want to do anything without talking to him. I tell him, but I was scared to talk to him. I knew this was what had happened to his parents. He'd said once that if laws had been different, he wouldn't have been born. I didn't know how he'd feel. I loved him so much, I tell him. I couldn't think straight. I couldn't think only for myself. It felt like a decision we had to make together, but I couldn't reach you. By the time we talked in December, there didn't seem to be any point. We'd be in New York in a week, and I thought we'd figure it out in person. His head rocks back and forth. His breaths are too small. Yesh, go on. Please go on. After Carson's, I tell him I went to my mother's in Phoenix. By then, I was clear about what I wanted to do. I tell him how my mom took care of me and how that healed something between us. I tell him about the agency and the photo of my first choice couple. They reminded me of an older version of us. They looked like they really loved each other, amused by each other. You had the baby? I did. He squeezes my fingers hard. He's still got a lot of strength.
A girl, I say. Above the mask, his forehead crumples. A daughter? Yes. He can't say anything more for a while. Where is she? I shake my head. I don't know. They couldn't tell me, but every time I think of that photo, I know she's fine. They were good people, I know it. Her name? I don't know what they chose. I call her Daisy. He nods and tears run along the seam of his mask. I had an hour with her. They let me give her a bottle. I wasn't allowed to nurse her. They said it would make it harder for the both of us. She took that bottle like she knew exactly what she was doing. My boys weren't like that. They sort of flopped around for a while before they figured it out. I feel him let out a puff of air, a laugh, or a small sob. Then a nurse came and got her. I checked a box giving the agency permission to release my information to her. Whenever I move, I call and give them my new address in case she asks for it. She hasn't? Not yet. She's 27? I nod. When she does, will you tell her about me? When she does, will you tell her about me? Will you tell her I love her? I will. Of course I will. Tell her, he says. I can't make out the rest. He's crying hard. He tries again. Tell her I'm always rooting for her. Neither of us can talk for a while. Our tears pool at his collarbone. You did all that alone. I wasn't alone. Without me. And then he goes on to ask her if, should I have married? Do you think I should have, pretty much, moved on and married? Do you think I would be happier? And she's like, I don't know. He says, I don't know if I would have been good at it. Maybe a quarter of the time. The rest of the time, I don't want to be alone. I can see how true that is. How unhappy it would have made me. I've always loved you, though, he said. Always, always. The nurse comes in, checks his stuff, changes out an IV thing, and then when she steps out, do you think I'll be able to see her? Watch over her? I think so, in some way. Do you think it'll be better? Be better than life? He nods. Yeah, I say, as if it's possible to imagine anything outside of life. We have a child, he says. I'm sorry. For what? Not telling you? He shakes his head. You told me. I'm glad to know. What do you make of death? Death? I stall. Do you have a personal theory? You're gonna think it's very Pollyanna, which is optimistic. No doubt. You've spent your whole life reading everything. You should be telling me. Say it. Well, I believe we're all one. Same consciousness or awareness or whatever you want to call it. The universe is expanding now, but soon, in a few more billion years, we'll start shrinking back again to what we were before the Big Bang. We'll get smaller and smaller, and then for a moment, we'll be a tiny speck. After that, they say we'll be nothing. We won't exist at all inside of a black hole, and then there'll be another bang and we'll return. Surprise, he says faintly. I think we desire unity because we have felt it before and we want to feel it again. It's our natural state. Eternity as a concept is a bit terrifying, he says. Only if time exists the way we experience it, which we know it does not. Without time, eternity loses its bite, which again I think is just a very beautiful discussion and commentary to have. And then she goes on to talk about or reflect or whatever. I was on a panel a few years ago with a philosopher who'd written a book on time. She said that there were two prevailing theories, eternalism and presentism. Eternalism is the belief that everything that is, has been, and will be exists right now and forever all at once. Presentism is the belief that only what exists in the present exists at all. Nothing before and nothing after, no exceptions. As we were walking off the stage, I asked her which she believed in, and she told me she could make a strong case for either, but recently she was leaning toward presentism. I didn't understand why she would lean toward presentism, why she would choose only the present moment, no past, no future, when she could have everything all at once for eternity. But standing here in line with all these good people, working to help others get better, it feels okay to me to have this moment and nothing else. It feels vast, open, beautiful. Only this right here, right now. I feel happy that I have told him. And so she was out in the cafeteria or whatever, getting some coffee and kind of taking a break. And that's where she had this reflection moment. And then she comes back in, a little bit more conversation, family visiting and whatnot, and then goes to the restroom. And I come back from the bathroom and take my seat. The room is nearly empty, just Uncle Percy on his phone. I reach for Yash's hand. But this time, it is not his hand in mine. It is my mother's. There is no other way to say this. It is my mother's hand. I can see that the hand that I'm holding is Yash's, but what I feel are my mother's plump fingers, my mother's small padded palm, the exact way her hand felt in mine when I was a little girl. It feels amazing. Sam comes in with a woman named Jane from Yesh's office, and I have to let go of my mom and give Jane my seat. I eat a packet of cookies from the tray in a chair near Uncle Percy. Nothing truly mystical has happened to me in my life before this, but for a minute or two in this room, some sort of channel opened up, and my mom was able to squeeze her hand through to me. Jane from his office pats Yesh's arm and wipes her face many times. She says something very quietly to him and then gets up and leaves. I return to my chair. My mother is gone. The hand is fully Yesh's again. He doesn't turn when I touch it. He doesn't tell me about Jane. I will never know her story. My phone says it's 6:10 and I have to go. I have to go to Houston. She hugs everybody goodbye and she goes over to Sam and they hug for like a really, really long time. Like a really silent time. I go back around and bend over you. My love. I brush my palm through your hair. I have loved you all my life, I whisper. See you after the next bang. And then she leaves. She goes from the hospital to the airport. She gets on her plane, and when the plane begins to back away from the gate, I have a bad feeling. Death feels close. I have brought death onto the plane. I find Jack's rock in my pocket and hold it tight, which is like a little good luck comforting rock that he gave her. I used to have a superstition that the plane would go down unless I spoke to someone in my row before takeoff. I got out of this habit long ago, but tonight it feels like a safety measure I need to take. Headed home? I ask the woman reading. She looks up slowly, annoyed. Vacation? Where to? As a reader, I feel for her. I wish I could stop myself. If only she understood it was for the protection of everyone on this plane. Mexico City? Oh, cool. She returns to her book. I can't see what it is from this angle with a definitive twist away from me. That one sentence, if only she understood it was for the protection of everyone on this plane, I also deeply identified with. Somebody with like OCD tendencies of like, I have to do this or like everybody's gonna die all constantly. Or like, I've had that happen a couple times where I'm like, oh, I have to like call my dad right now or he's gonna like die, or like we have to do blah blah blah, or like everything's gonna like end right now. I felt that deeply in my soul as well. When she gets out of the plane, she gets a text message from Sam that Yesh has died. She keeps walking. She's kind of like numb to this news until she finds her husband who's waiting for her and pretty much like collapses in his arms. Silas is at the bottom of the escalator. I don't know how he's here. I didn't tell him the airline or the time. Did he get the boys at the hotel and come back for me? I don't know, but he's here. He like pulls her to the side and is like holding her as she sobs and whatnot. And then eventually they get into the hotel room and she can hear the kids on it's like a double queen bed, right? Or a double queen room. So like the boys are on the one bed and she can like see them and hear them and smell them and everything. And she's just like back home. Well, not like home, but you know what I mean. And my chest hurts with my love for the three of them. I bend down and stroke Jack's thick hair. They will shave his head again and we'll see all of the scars. Then they'll cut into his skull once more. This precious boy, half of his childhood carved into the skin of his crown. Also a beautiful sentence and a beautiful way to put that. He will be okay. I don't know how or where this thought comes from me or from Silas or from Yash or my mother, but it comes to me. And it feels like an actual possibility. Silas and I get into the other bed. I lie as close to him as I can, along the whole length of him. I cry some more and he holds me. And I don't know, oh my God. And I don't know where Yesh is, or what will happen when the sun comes up and the week begins. Maybe it's true what the philosopher said, that the past and the future don't exist, that this is the only moment we will ever have, this moment right now, and this moment and this. Casey, Silas says in my ear, half asleep, pulling me closer, reading my mind. You're here. Casey. Her real name is Casey. We never learned her name through the entire book because she was always called Jordan. And then like the interactions between her and her husband, right? He's just like had never said her name outright and the kids always called her mom. And yeah, the book ends with him calling her Casey, which I think is like speaking to the presentism thing, right? Like she's officially like moved on, like you're in the moment now, like this is over with, like that part of that chapter or whatever you want to call it. It's just like, I think the perfect ending to a book. I think that's so crazy and beautiful. And that's the book. That's Heart of the Lover. Isn't that so sad? But again, it's sad in a way that, like, I don't know, it feels so complicated and messy and so good. I don't know. I don't have any words. It felt very, like, I don't know, like I said, straightforward. It felt more like a memoir, like somebody's diary entries, like just like telling you so straightforward of like, this is what happened, this is what it is. Like, I'm not assigning any like moral value to anything. Like, just it is what it is. This was my reaction, this was their reaction, and it's for the reader's like interpretation and everything to assign feelings and moral value to each of these things, right? Which I think is an interesting way to write it. I could see that not being appealing to people. I could see that being read as like, you know, choppy or disengaged and unlikable characters and like blah, blah, blah. I could totally see how it gets interpreted that way. I think it works really well for a book like this, for topics like this. It feels very much, again, I think I said it way earlier about like, if you get it, you get it. Like, if you've been there, if you know the feelings that she's talking about, or if you've been in similar situations where you can put yourself in those shoes and be like, holy shit, like that sucks, or like that is hard, or like you remember how you felt in those exact positions and you can like place it on there and you understand maybe a little bit of like the disassociativeness that kind of comes through with some of the wording and explanations of things. I think that comes across very well. I think the random droppings of, like I said, the bad stuff, right? The traumatic stuff, and just like, it just happens, right? You're thinking of it just happens, and it just kind of having this like overlay of your life and like always coming up somehow in some way, and like you just can't really ever escape it, and something will just remind you of it, and it just comes in waves, right? Whatever form of like grief and everything is just, I think the way, again, it's talked about, just like there's no preamble, there's no whatever, it just like, it is what it is, and you press on, I think is also very well written and very reflective of like real life, in my experience at least. And I think it was just really well done. I was so happy with this book. I love crying. I love books that make me cry. I love books that make me feel like shit, because I like having structured ways to feel those things, right? I feel a lot all the time. And so I like having these like constructive ways to feel and to get it out that makes me feel something and feel, I don't know if it's like validated or feel like whatever relating to other human experiences, even though this is a fictional character. It goes back to like what we said. It maybe the events specifically are fictional, or the characters are fictional, but the emotions aren't, right? Those emotions are real. Those emotions are like not factual, but you know what I'm saying? That's like a thing that has been concentrated and distilled, or whatever the terms were. I love that so much. I literally have it highlighted like for my own personal writing of like things to like keep in mind, and like I want to make special note of. I just thought, I don't know, there were some really beautiful lines in that book. Beautiful, beautiful writing, in my opinion, and I had a good time with it. I thought it was a good story. So I would love to hear your opinion about it. Let me know what your thoughts are. We're getting the real emotional one out of the way, because Thursday I'm reviewing some dumbass book about a werewolf. It's going to be The Wolf King by Laura or Lauren something. I don't know off the top of my head. Be doing that on Thursday, and then eventually I'll be doing like Quicksilver and Akotar, I think. So one of those bad boys eventually here soon. So I'm trying to get back into my routine of having my like Monday videos and then my Thursday goofball videos, or like super trendy stupid books. Not stupid, but you know what I'm saying. Those nonsense ones. And then I'm really hoping I can get and maintain the Monday routine of these being my more either like the classics or the less known ones, or the more like serious type book chats on Mondays. Really, really enjoyed having that routine, and I think I'm almost back to the point that I can get back into that. So I'm so excited for that. I hope you guys are too. And yeah, like I said, let me know what you think. Let me know what you thought of this, and thank you so much for listening, especially if you got to this point in the video. I greatly appreciate you from the bottom of my heart. And again, shout out to all the book besties and Bindery folks and patrons and audio listeners on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. I love all of you guys. You guys are all super phenomenal, and I'm always blown away by all of the support from everybody. And like I said, even if you're not one of those people I just rattled off, if you're hearing me say this, you are in that lump of people that I appreciate and am so deeply grateful for. So anyway, okay, I'm gonna go finish crying, blow my nose, and get back to Sunday shenanigans. So thank you so much again for listening. Like I said, love you, and have a great week. Bye.